Hey guys, SUNSfan here with the 6.79 update for Dota 2, which is kind of funny that it's called 6.79 considering as of this recording it's not even out in Dota 1 yet, but that's another story. Joining me, this amazing panel of experts. Joining me is Purge and Blitz. How's it going, buddies?
I am doing great.
Don't speak at the same time, how dare you?
Damn, I was waiting for him to say something. So
now you ruined it. Now I'm like afraid that he was gonna say something and
you laughed. No, I was trying to do that just to like screw up the whole recording. That was my goal.
So Purge and others have done an analysis of this already, and the reason he's doing this with us is because obviously he needs the SUNSfan expertise. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I really want to know what your opinion is, just so I can like completely change how I think about this game.
I'm really honestly, when something's like very controversial, I always take the side that is completely wrong in hindsight. So I look forward to doing that.
I mean,
today.
like that one time that we were on that Smosh Games video, and you were like completely adamant that COD was a shit esports.
No, okay. I stand by that. I am still correct. People thought I was a douche, but they also thought I was correct. So that goes without saying that I'm correct. Come on here. Okay, anyway, this video is probably gonna be one of the longest ones we've ever done. I don't know if Neil's gonna want to split it up, but if so, just expect that. We're gonna be skipping some stuff, so if you guys really want like in-depth analysis of literally every single thing, just watch Purge's video, or we'll also post some links to some other people's that have done it as well. So let's get started. So the general changes, and this is a huge one, the buyback preventing gaining reliable gold and whatnot. So why don't you guys go over that?
Blitz, I think you're more qualified to cover this because I literally never buy back.
Yeah, that's true. Blitz is a hardcore buybacker.
So in regular games, what this does is it'll deter you from in like pub games, it'll deter that person. You know, that one guy that gets pissed off that he died.
I think I know someone like that.
Yeah. Well, that'll prevent that, and that's like the pub. That's how it'll affect the average game. You know, it'll deter people from wanting to just do that. Because that does kind of ruin games sometimes, you know, when you've got that one guy who thinks he's hot shit, and then he's going to buy back because he died. Anyways, on a competitive level, the biggest thing that it does is, what I really didn't like is, in the Asian playstyle, I was told once that you had to have a 20k gold lead, you had to have a pipe, and you had to have a mech, and you had to have all the tier 3 towers down before you could push. Because everybody saves for buyback, right? So if you're base pushing and you get into a fight that you think is a 5-on-5, it ends up turning into like a 9-on-5 because the team that you're pushing into will just buy back left and right, and then that just extends the game, and it kind of creates this stagnant play style. Like overall, what this patch did, not jumping ahead of ourselves, but it's kind of promoting play that's a little more active rather than passive, and like it's kind of getting rid of all of the defenders' advantage, or not all of it, but like a big portion of like defenders' advantage where they can just like sit in their base and buy back every time, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing.
I didn't actually realize when I read that the first time that it means you literally can't gain gold that isn't from hero kills or towers.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's pretty big in a good way, I guess.
Do you think that's a direct, indirect nerf to like Furion or Nature's Prophet?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because that's one of the big frustrating things as like a spectator, since that's my expertise as a spectator, you know. It was kind of frustrating to watch people be able to buy back like semi-consistently when they should be losing for all intents and purposes. So I think that for me, that I really like that change a lot.
That's a really good point with Prophet, actually, because if you kill him, it actually means that like every time you kill a Prophet and he just buys back, you're like, oh, we can push. Wait, sorry guys, no tactical advantage. Back to passiveness. That's a good point.
So moving along here, I don't know how big you guys think this changes, but the range hero is now getting the same denied experience as melee.
You got to go back to the one before that. That one's probably the biggest.
Okay.
One of the bigger changes.
Creeps now meet a bit closer to the tower in your off lane.
Now, when I first read this, when I did my patch video, I didn't actually understand how close it was, but it's pretty darn close. It's like on the Radiant side, it's the top of the river. On the like where the jungle entrance is, it's like right there. That's where the creeps meet unblocked. So this means that both the carry and the offlane hero are most likely going to want to both block the creep waves, and it's basically going to mean that the offlane hero can very easily get experience at the very start of the game with doing absolutely nothing. So it really gives the offlane hero a bigger chance at actually grabbing experience and maybe being a little bit more annoying.
Yeah, this overall patch, and when we move on, we're going to see this too. Is that offlane is a lot easier nowadays, because before what would happen is 2 supports would sit up there, one would pull, one would just keep you out of the lane until you couldn't do anything, right? And then what it did is you could only pick offlane heroes that could also simultaneously jungle. like Nature's Prophet, Lone Druid, Darkseer, all the ones that just get beat out of the lane, and then you have to just go in jungle and stack and do things like that, like Batrider. And if you notice, the trend in competitive games is actually just to forego the offlane altogether. Like, you don't even send anybody up there. Right. Maybe sometimes you'll send the Nature's Prophet up there to mess with the pull, but aside from that, after like the first 30-40 seconds, you'll just go to the jungle. And the same thing is done to your short lane won't see anybody either, right? And so it just created a playstyle where the only active lane was really mid, because nobody's going to die in the short lane, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to die in the long lane if they go to jungle. And so it made it so that the first 6 minutes of the game, the only place you could really gank was the mid lane. And I think that this creates a lot less of a stagnant playstyle where people actually have to deal with the offlaner. You're going to see a lot more 2-1-2 compositions instead of the old.
That's what I'm most excited for, honestly. I mean, that's like the old school pub thing, is a 2-1-2, and you never see that in competitive, obviously. With changes that we're going to go over soon, it kind of goes over exactly what you're talking about. Do you think that the range heroes experience thing is that big of a deal? I mean, that was like the one advantage, like as a melee hero user, like exclusively
strength melee, always
strength melee, of course. That was like one of the few benefits that you got out of that. You know what I mean? As being a melee, you get a little bit more XP from denied creeps. Is this a big deal at all?
I don't personally think it's that big of a deal myself, but
I feel like he's just, or when I say he, I mean Icefrog, just making everything, and you'll see with the rest of the patch notes, everything more consistent, less arbitrary.
And
right?
He's been doing that the last 2 or 3 patches. There's been a lot of things like cast ranges have been the same, or like, for example, there were times where like blink range would scale or something, or it'd be really weird things like slight scaling that wasn't completely obvious, that you just kind of have to know about the abilities, or it's a good thing to aim for. It's make it more consistent and understandable.
All right, so I'm going to skip the XP thing increasing because it's not a huge...
well, I think the only thing you should notice is that the largest creeps in the jungle, which is Satyr Tormentors and the Dark Troll Warlords, they give less EXP by quite a bit. So this means that jungling is slightly less... it's less able to give you a big boost. So things, most importantly, like Batrider jungling for a fast Blink Dagger, he'll still get the same gold if he does it the same way, which is actually slightly more difficult now. He's going to get less EXP from it, so it less incentivizes people to just go in the jungle AFK until they hit a huge peak and then going for ganks or doing other things.
Yeah.
So less
this
jungling.
Is another thing, forcing people to actually go in the offlane, right? Because the jungle is going to be a lot less profitable.
Yeah.
So as I said, competitively, you just send a hero to the jungle instead, but you can't really do that anymore. And for heroes like Darkseer or Batrider, what they would do is when the creeps got swapped, right?
Hello?
Did
he just freaking Blitz, man? All right. Anyway, his
like
point
really
was really valid. Yeah, definitely valid. You guys are talking about the 4th paragraph, though, right? Because you guys like hardcore skipped. Hardcore.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we did. We missed an important one.
One of the main changes from this patch. You're still there, right, Blitz?
He just got back.
Okay, you're awesome. Okay, the 2 things that I want to talk about that help offlaners quite a bit, and another reason, like you said, to force people to actually go to the offlane, the swapping of the medium neutral camps with the small camps, this means that pulling will be less effective. Plus, XP from neutrals will be split if they're in range, which is like an enormous change. Yeah.
No matter who gets the kill. In the past, if your creeps got the kill, only your team would get the experience. If they got the last hit with their hero, then they would get the XP. So it was a really big deal whether or not you get the last hit or your creeps get the last hit on a creep, because it could completely swing the XP around. So now it's just based on the offlane hero's position, basically.
Did I DC through like all of my talk?
Yep. Yeah, you did. It sounded really good for the first 8 seconds, and then it was
so I'm gonna finish what I was saying because
ahead.
that makes me angry. So another thing is, like I said, you went to the jungle, right? When you couldn't offlane, but now you can't really do that because as a hero like Darkseer or a hero like Batrider, what you would do it on the Radiant side is you just did the small camp, and then simultaneously you would do you would stack the camp right under you, right? But it's not so easy to do that anymore because now you've got to deal with the medium camp, and if you see mud golems or something like that, well, that's completely out of the picture. All you can do is stack now. And it just makes it a lot less efficient to be in the jungle overall. Plus, it nerfs heroes like Nature's Prophet. Yeah.
Everything in this patch was done to nerf Nature's Prophet. Let's not kid ourselves. So anything specific you wanted to mention, Blitz, about the well, I guess you kind of just went over just a general consensus that
the pull camp swap
camps
really does mess up a lot of junglers, which is pretty okay. I mean, some junglers they'll still be fine. Like Enigma can easily jungle through this. He's not going to have to worry about it. He'll just have to do medium camps or maybe go in the middle of the jungle to start instead of going to small camp to start. But
it's less of a walk for Doom if he wants to jungle now.
That's true, especially if a Doom is playing carry, actually, because the best early game creeps are actually the small camp ones for Doom, in my opinion, because you either want the movement speed creep or you want the healing creep that does the 2 mana per second ridiculous aura.
That freaking creep.
And now you don't have to run across the whole jungle to go get it. So there's some improvements, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh God, pulling is completely ruined. Like pulling is horrible now." It's like no, it's just less efficient. You pull a small camp.
Well, it also takes more kind of skill.
Yeah, the camps
run
at different speed too.
Mindless.
Yeah, but basically, like, if you're pulling, it's just a small camp, and it's going to give you less experience and less gold. And you're going to have to pull it through. You can't stack it anymore. So everybody's going to have to learn how to pull creeps through, basically. And that's also a lot more easily contested by the offlane. So if you're playing against a good offlane, he is going to mess up your pulls, and it's going to hurt your supports a lot. So it's more skill-based in some ways. It's not just you stack at 53 and pull the 2 waves in, for easy denies.
So looking at the 4th paragraph here, I'm going to skip most of this, but obviously a lot of the creeps have been lowered in bounty and whatnot. But the one thing I want to mention was the Dragon Ancient neutral camp has flying capabilities, which means that it'll fly over terrain, preventing you from... Is it called choke point jungling, even if it's in the Ancient? I'm not sure.
No. Choke point jungling is when you only have one creep hitting you at a time. What that would basically be called is ancient jungling, where you make like a big maze and then you just stand in the middle of it, and it's like playing Warcraft 3 all over again. And you're tower defensing the shit out of those dragons. You can't do that anymore. At least they spawn dragons.
Yeah, I think they did put it back to where it was before because people were abusing it, but I think that's something that they intend to actually permanently put in. So
can you pull from the mid lane or pull into the mid lane with the dragons?
Yeah, that's why they've reverted it for now.
Okay, I was like, that is completely broken.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
And another thing you could do is if you put like Broodmother mid, now that she can have
that's true.
Terrain,
oh god.
You place a web in the middle and then you just go and stack the big camp and then just like walk back into the lane and continue to do stuff.
That would be so dirty. Oh god.
It's like playing Tinker.
All right, so this I think is a big change for specifically Nightstalker. Indirect. I don't even know if you can call it an indirect buff. This had to be done because of Nightstalker. The day-night length has been decreased from 6 to 4 minutes, which some think is maybe a little bit of a nerf to start. But I think overall, I think having a more consistent nighttime is probably better for the hero overall. And of course, the night vision has been lowered for a lot of the heroes that had higher night vision, making him stronger overall.
I might be wrong about this, but I think the only hero that still has 1800 night vision is Nightstalker and Slark. Slark is not on that list, and Nightstalker is not either. Enchantress used to have 1800 night vision. She no longer does. She was nerfed down to 800, which sucks for her. But Slark and Nightstalker are still going to rule the nighttime. The main reason that the night and day length was decreased, though, is not because of Nightstalker. It was actually for ganking reasons, because IceFrog wants more stuff to happen in the early game, because the early games of Dota is sometimes boring. Not as bad as maybe some other games, but... It is good because now people can just roam at 4 minutes. Before, they don't even need a smoke to do this now because everybody knows night ganks are way more dangerous. So wards are going to be a lot more important, and being aware of where the supports are is a much bigger deal because they're just going to pop out as soon as it hits 4 minutes and they're going to kill you, and they won't even need a smoke to do it.
Yeah, what you would do before is you'd have to smoke and you'd have to go around. But now what you can do is as soon as it hits night, you can actually just wait at the top of the hill and wait for the mid hero to come down, like so he can't see when you run up to stun.
Right.
And then it's a really easy gank, as opposed to the fact that before you'd have to go all the way around just to execute something.
All right, moving on. And again, in terms of Nightstalker, we'll get to him soon. There's more. I guess you could call it an indirect buff, but he has direct buffs obviously coming up very soon. Okay, this one's really weird. Roshan will respawn at a random time between 8 and 11 minutes after death, and also when the Aegis expires, instead of just doing nothing, it'll heal the hero for over a 5-second period as long as it doesn't get hit. So the main addition obviously is the 8 to 11 minute. Now I feel this is really weird. Some people think that it's good to have uncertainty. I think it's like a double-edged sword kind of deal where, like, what if they're just sitting around for that 3 minute? Because they're already sitting around, but they know exactly when Roshan's gonna spawn, right? Now it's more of an uncertainty, but they're still kind of sitting around. I could be wrong on this, obviously.
I think it's going to make action at least, or at least force people to constantly have vision on Roshan to see when it's actually up so they can choose when to team fight. So maybe heroes like Clockwork will be more important because he can just constantly rocket spam it and then they can choose to fight. If you don't have a hero like that, then people have to kind of gamble. And at the very least, it'll make a little bit less stagnation, in my opinion, because teams will have to maybe be in an area where they can fight and they'll have to maybe hang around for a couple minutes. But I don't know. I guess I understand what you're saying, but previously people would just say, oh, Roshan's up in 5 minutes, just go passive farm, and then a minute before that we'll smoke and go fight, and then we'll turn it into Roshan.
I think it's one of those things you can't really, I mean, obviously they've tested this, so I'm just going to assume they're correct, but you can't really theory craft it without seeing it in action. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. That was just a pile of bullshit you pulled out of your brain.
Lies. Blitz, what's your opinion on it?
Well, the big thing is that it makes it so it's more random, obviously. So, like, imagine a team is behind, right, and a team is ahead, right? That team is gonna like assemble the 5-man to Rosh, right, to protect it. That gives that other team a little more variability. Like maybe they get unlucky and Roshan spawns like right at the 8-minute mark, but maybe the other team gets unlucky, right, and then they have to like wander around Roshan, and the team that's behind gets a little more breathing room for like a minute or two where they can actually go and farm around the map and then come when you actually have to commit to Roshan.
Right.
So that's an interesting part of it, and it also promotes like map control. Like you actually have to take most of the towers out. I actually think Alliance is kind of a small reason as to why this change was made, because those guys would be like, even if they were ahead, they would go Roshan, right? And they'd pick heroes like Lone Druid or Nature's Prophet, and they do it for free. And if they were behind, they would just go Roshan too, because then it would force the team to fight them in an area where they were more comfortable, or where they could potentially set up better. Whereas now you can't really do that. There's no, it's a lot harder to set up when you have no idea when you're actually going to take a fight, right? Before it was like, well, you have to fight us at Roshan because we're not going to take any damage because our Bear or our Treants, if you pick Nature's Prophet, are just going to take it out, right? And now you have to like come in to fight us. Whereas now people actually have to be active around the map. You have to take out most of the towers. You have to force people back. You might have to fight earlier than you would like. You just can't passively wait for Roshan, clear the wave, and then just sit there like Purge said.
I don't want to go off on too big of a tangent here, but I always have to bring this up. Since both of you guys have StarCraft backgrounds to some degree, more so Blitz.
Okay.
Purge is awful at StarCraft, obviously. With everything being changed here to be more consistent, less arbitrary, what do you think about making the map? Because making the map more symmetrical. Because to some degree, it has some arbitrary areas. Like an example would be just Roshan. Like, why not make the map symmetrical so you can have 2 pits and then 1 Roshan that spawns randomly?
Can you just drop this torch? Like you dropped your
I didn't think you'd
Team
remember
Surrender torch a long time ago. Thank God.
Hey, they put that in. They put that in private games, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, but they didn't put it in pubs like you were fighting for.
Well, okay, so the pub thing, the pub concede thing, I agree now.
No, we're not going there.
No, I agree that there should not be concede for pub games, but this is my theory about it. Okay, so in California, you cannot be on the phone and drive at the same time, right? I think that is probably a good, it's for the greater good to do that.
Time on this, but
right?
Keep going.
It's for the greater good to have that, because people cannot drive and talk on the phone. Some people can, me being one of them. I definitely can, because I drive with one hand to begin with. I'm obviously very elitist when it comes to driving, but the point is, it's for the greater good. Do you understand?
Okay, so the reason why a game like StarCraft has a mirror matchup, like the map is symmetrical, is because they can have mirror matchups. Like if it's Zerg versus Zerg, and you just happen to spawn on the side that has slightly like more money or something like that, you're probably gonna win if it's even skill, right? But in a map like Dota, if you actually talk to most pros, some of them will say that the map, like what side you're on, like Dire Radiant does matter, but for the most part, everyone agrees that like skill usually wins the game, and it's not that big of a deal. If it is, it's like really minimal too.
Well, I mean, what's the point of not doing it though? Is the real question.
Make the map less cool.
Yeah, I think
less
no,
cool.
no. I kind of agree with that though, because it's unique, right? Because if the map was completely symmetrical, then you'd have people that would just like memorize one side of it, and then you would know.
Yeah.
But in this way, like everything is different. It's like you're actually going along a road that doesn't just like stay the course. It's like winding. You have to know like each side intimately, right?
Yeah, I think there would be like symmetrical juke spots on both sides of the map. Now there's like twice as many juke spots to learn, or positioning, or circumstances that wouldn't arise at all if the map wasn't different there. Like, think about how many weird stuff. All right, let's talk about it this way. Pretty much like the Roshan pit is funding your job. Like, how many top 10 plays have you gotten from like weird shit happening in the Roshan pit?
That's true.
Like, you shouldn't even hate on that. Come on.
Well, it's not hate. It's just more of a question of making things more consistent when they're already doing that. You know, I mean, it's not like I'm gonna stop playing Dota if they don't do it. I'm just saying, with these changes being put in place, I wouldn't be surprised in the next year if they do that, and then I'll be the smart guy in this conversation. Okay?
Just like surrenders.
Just like, okay, I already told you my theory on that, and I'm still correct.
Let's
just
move
like
on.
the COD thing. All right, moving on. Starting goal has been changed because, well, we'll get into that later. That's more of a consumables being upped in price overall. Gold spree being changed in price as well, or the gold bounty getting from that. Anything here you guys want to mention? Any of that is super important? Obviously, like 1,000 compared to 600 is a huge change, but I don't know if that's going to make that big of a difference.
It just means that it's harder for a hero to snowball, and it makes it easier for you to catch up a little bit.
And then now we have the tower, last hit bonuses, and all that good stuff. We can just skip all this.
The random gold bonus is such a big thing, because I'm so tired of heroes randoming and starting out with like a null talisman and tangos and a salve and 2 ironwoods.
They're just gonna get 1 ironwood. Like I guess they can.
That's a big difference to me.
Wait, how much do you get for randoming?
850, dude.
So it's 800.
You get 250 gold. It's ridiculous. That's so much money.
It's so stupid. I'm so tired of somebody randoming Queen of Pain and then getting like
randoming OD against your Storm Spear every time.
It drives me insane.
They're gonna random those heroes, and they're gonna get a null talisman, and they're gonna get a salve tango. That's the only difference that this makes.
That's perfect to me. I'm okay with that.
They might still be able to get an ironwood because gold went up by like what, 22. It's gonna be close. I haven't done the math yet. Whatever.
Oh, actually, yeah, the gold income. I forgot to mention that it's upped by.
It's a pretty big margin,
faster
actually.
rate.
It went from like 1.2 gold per second to 1.6 gold per second.
How much gold is that per minute that you gain? Like 20 something?
I don't know. It's a different of 0.4 times 60, whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Just probably like 20 gold extra per minute or something.
So basically, you get more gold for sitting around doing nothing. That's good.
Which is
It makes
good.
it easier for people. I mean, some of these changes
It's like,
are
easy mode, but for everybody, almost.
I hope to God they don't put easy mode in.
Yeah,
I
me
think they're
too.
going to,
Holy
but
shit. No,
Jesus.
to
It like
God, they
segregates
shouldn't.
everybody, right?
Yeah, they shouldn't. It'll
So
segregate
bad.
the community too much, and then there'll be all these people who go on forums and talk about balance when they play easy mode, and it's a completely different game.
Indeed. All right, evasion now stacks diminishingly. Is this a big deal at all? I mean, are we going to see multiple butterflies on people?
You can get it on PA, for example.
Yeah.
Like if you're really far ahead, you can get a butterfly in her. And it might be a little confusing. I might be slightly wrong because I'm not like a huge mechanics person, but even though it says diminishingly, like the same thing applies. It still does apply extra survivability, essentially. So you could hypothetically grab like 2 butterflies if you really wanted to against somebody that has no hopes of getting an MKB, just to have a good time. And it will be effective if you're just looking for
It's more of a
survivability and
pub
attack speed.
kind of thing, though.
Well, I mean,
in most cases.
if you're playing, like, think about playing like PA and you went like Phase Boots Vanguard and then you just made a butterfly when you're ahead. Like, if they don't have an obscene amount of magic nuke, you're just going to win the game because they can't kill you because you have 60% evasion or something like that. It's kind of situationally useful and something that's okay to be in the game, honestly. I mean, if you do go that way and they grab a Monkey King bar, then you have now wasted 4 skill points and like 3,000 gold of your 6,000 gold items, so, or 2,000-ish. So it's counterable, but it situationally can give you a really big advantage if you want it. I think it's kind of cool. I don't think it's going to break anything personally because it's very easily counterable and people already plan ahead for that stuff. So
Agreed.
And the last thing on the general list, you can no longer orb attack while attack restricted, and this is obviously pretty much for Huskar being able to use Ethereal Blade.
No, OD as well.
OD as well, okay.
OD as well.
Ethereal Blade on OD, is that a common thing? I guess that would do a lot of freaking damage.
No, you get a Ghost Scepter, and then
oh, that's true.
You get a Ghost Scepter on OD if they have too much physical attack, and then you just burn people up.
Basically nerfs to OD and Huskar indirectly here. That's good.
Buffs to Crystal Maiden.
Yes, Crystal Maiden is important note. All right, on to the heroes. Abaddon. Anything? First of all, did nobody notice this for some reason? Apparently, they've renamed Death Coil all of a sudden. Is that new?
It was actually Mist Coil. No, it was Mist Coil the whole time. I remember writing a guide for him when he
Really?
first came out, and it was Miss Coil right at the start.
That's crazy. Okay.
Death Coil's probably copyrighted by Blizzard. That's like one of their.
I don't
like,
understand how
most
that could
basic
possibly.
It's the Warcraft hero spell.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Aphotic Shield is now. I mean, anything from Abaddon you guys think is game breaking?
Just slight nerfs to the hero basically because he's too good. That's all we really need to say.
Not
So-
too big of a beef.
Yeah. Alchemist, this is a big change, I think, at least.
Mhm.
So the bonus HP is now basically bonus HP regen.
Yeah, it used to give you bonus HP. Now it just gives you tons of regen, basically. So you might want to grab at least some HP items on Alchemist so that you have enough of an HP pool where you can survive the initial burst and then regen up. So more priority towards HP items probably, at least in the early game, slightly. Like I'm arguing for maybe like a Vitality booster or going Strength Treads consistently rather than sometimes doing Phase. That's my argument for it. But it's kind of a cool change. Actually, it's really fun to play heavy regen styles in my opinion. Something I used to do a lot with like Death Prophet and like Darkseer and Batrider in the past. People would just go like heavy regen tank builds, and it's actually really fun to just tank a bunch of damage and sit there and like continuously regen and barely survive. So I can't wait to see this in action. It's gonna make the hero really annoying to play against, that's for sure.
I actually think it makes it weaker.
Yeah, it's weaker, but like
Oh, yeah.
imagine like getting him to like 100 HP and you just can't quite fucking kill him.
Yeah, but it makes it so because before, if a mid hero went to gank him and the ultimate was up, it was impossible.
Yeah.
Because he had like 1,000 HP and he'd have regen on top of that.
Imagine him.
But now
with,
you can actually burst him down.
Imagine him with the new armlet.
Yeah. It was just silly because you couldn't kill him before.
Well,
But
burst
now you
damage is
actually
now
can.
like a legit counter, at least on the early stages when he doesn't have too many
Mhm.
items.
Yep.
So some slight changes to Ancient Apparition. I don't think we really need to go over that unless you guys.
Buffs all around.
Yeah.
Very slight buffs.
And Axe
Kind
got.
of bring that hero back a little bit.
Yeah, I think another thing with Ancient Apparition, and we're gonna get into this a little bit later with another hero. I feel like they really want him to be a mid hero, as opposed, which he used to be, I think, but as opposed to
It's too
more of a
easy to
support.
gank.
Yeah. And
Well,
he has
especially
no
now with the new
reliable.
metagame with
his-
the mid being
His
so
lockdown though
gankable.
isn't reliable, so it's not like
Yeah.
you can actually kill anybody middle.
All right, Axe, tons of changes, and Culling Blade is obviously the coolest change of all. Why don't you guys go over that?
Can I summarize this?
Yes.
Essentially, the buffs and nerfs to Axe were make Battle Hunger slightly worse
Mhm.
and make his ulti quite a bit better. So they're trying to make him a little bit less focused on Battle Hunger and a little bit more focused on counter helix and what the hero honestly should be designed to do. Like he's got two skills that are focused on synergizing, and the only way people play Axe is using his passive to casually farm, and then once in a while you come out and gank with Battle Hunger.
Yeah.
And this way they're going to focus on Culling Blade has no cooldown if it cuts somebody successfully, and it increases the movement speed massively up to 40% for 10 frickin' seconds. That's attack speed as well, by the way, I believe, right? Yeah. 40% movement speed, 40% attack speed. That's 120 movement speed, by the way, which is an obscene amount. That makes like Crystal Maiden run almost hasted. And what else does it do? The mana cost is also reduced. Yeah, at all levels, this is also really good. 60 at level 1 is huge, because in the past, you'd always have Axe mana problems. It's like Axe needed so many early items to be good. He needed like Tranquil Boots to be vaguely passable for regen, and then he needed some HP item preferably, but you could kind of get away with it. And then you kind of want Mana Boots as well, because you always run out of mana. So it's like you were just always dicked in all these different ways. So Battle Hunger is worse. Culling Blade is much better. The mana cost is reduced. You're better able to gank in the mid game without needing to buy a 2,000 gold mana item.
Mhm.
It's all around, I think, balancing the hero a lot better and making Battle Hunger less annoying. I don't necessarily think he's viable from this, but it's definitely going in the right direction.
Well, I think for me the big change is, like you were mentioning, counter helix. That is fairly large difference in procs as long as you have good RNG, which I know Purge does not, based on.
I haven't done the math on the counter helix, and I never will because I'm lazy. But it's better at level 4. You can spin faster or spin more often.
I think something that people have, like the first thing that they notice from reading these is Culling Blade. You'll be able to just kill people one after another. But even with the mana reduction, there's still gonna be mana issues for Axe, obviously.
I don't know, man. 60 mana. Could just kill a man at 60 mana. That's pretty good. I mean, what's the first? The first threshold is okay. The threshold is reduced though, so 250.
Do you think Aghanim's is legit?
I think
Because
Aghanim's
the
is
threshold's quite low.
I think Aghanim's is not really needed anymore, honestly. Like the entire reason you got eggs before is to put the cooldown from like 45 seconds to 6 seconds. And now if you just successfully Culling Blade somebody, then you can use it again. It does change the threshold slightly. In fact, a pretty high amount at level 16. But actually, if anything, maybe more axes will be used in late game. One of the things I really like doing is just ulting a creep, because it gives you the same movement speed,
yeah.
and now it gives you attack speed as well. So if you just ulti a creep, everybody gets like
imagine
40%.
that next to Bloodseeker, who's already buffed up, which we'll get to soon, of course.
Screw Bloodseeker. Who cares if he runs light speed? He still has to do damage, guys.
That's true.
Like, that's actually a really good attack speed bonus. And if you could use Aghanims to just ulti creeps for attacks and movement speed bonuses in team fights, that's 4 times what a drum does, by the way.
Now, are you 100% sure that... No, it only goes not on cooldown if it kills a hero, though.
Yeah, but if you get an Ags, it's still 6
like
seconds. So you could use it. Yeah, it's 6 seconds, I believe. So you still could use it to buff your team.
Yeah, that's really good.
For 120 movement speed.
That's pretty dirty. All right, moving on to Batrider, and I think this is quite a large change. So base damage reduced quite a bit. That's like one of the largest.
10
I think,
is a lot.
I think like the largest I've seen is Naga from God knows how long ago. This is like the second highest I've seen. So that's early game like destruction on the other side. Vision reduced a little bit, but Flaming Lasso, you have to be less than melee range to actually cast.
The vision change is actually pretty big as well, because normal daytime vision is 1800. He now has 1200.
I didn't even realize it's daytime. Okay, yeah.
I believe that's what that is. Am I wrong?
That's pretty freaking low.
Is that what it looks like to you, Will?
Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest thing, too, though, is Batrider before mid 1-on-1 was unbeatable, and now, because what you would do is you just sticky people and then right-click them left and right. You didn't even have to Firefly to kill them. But now it's actually so hard. It's like an Invoker level nerf.
Do you think this puts him in the jungle, like
more
consistently?
I still think he's a good hero.
He was nerfed in the jungle as well, remember? Because now the small camp can't be killed. So
well, kind of, but I still think it's a useful hero because you've got a hero that has like 4 amazing abilities, a stun, a hard disable that goes through BKB. I think that teams will have to find a different way to utilize him, but I think with a Blink Dagger, he's still by far one of the most efficient ways to initiate. Like everyone's talking about how now Vengeful Spirit is the new Batrider or something silly like that, but it's a support Venge. You know, how soon can you actually farm a Blink Dagger and get a tank item? Whereas Batrider, once you get a 4-staff, you're still able to kidnap and take a hero entirely out of a fight. Right? Like, you've got a 6-slotted Shadow Fiend with the BKB, and you can make him completely useless by just hooking him and then bringing him to your team and blowing him up before the fight starts.
Moving on to Beastmaster, which I don't think we need to go over too much. I think it's cool that they make Call of the Wild 2 abilities now. That's do you know the mana cost for those?
25.
Is that it was 25 before, right?
Yes, and now they're reduced to 15 apiece. So slightly more mana, but it's balanced.
Yeah, that's good. And then Bloodseeker, which everybody has been highlighting as being completely
how many videos
OP,
have you guys made?
Yes, well, honestly, we made one video and then people disliked it because a lot of them didn't even know about the change, so we had to come up with another video after. But regardless, I don't think personally he's overpowered, but I want your guys' thoughts. So basically, actually, let's just get your opinions first.
This is like the best change to just make a bunch of YouTube videos about. He doesn't have a cat movement speed. Previously in Dota, the only hero that could go faster than 522 was Charge from Spiritbreaker. Everything else was like blinks or teleports or something like that.
In Dota 1, does Charge go faster than 522?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why was that? Why do people always say that Dota 1 is restricted by 522?
I don't know. Maybe they did something weird with it. I don't know. It was like some phase shift. I don't know how they programmed it. Who knows? But they could make it go faster. I'm not sure. Okay. But this is just regular movement. But basically, his Thirst is now global. It gives less movement speed if somebody is slow. But if there's lots of people that are low movement speed, then they stack, basically. And then you can end up being really fast if you grab a lot of speed items. So it also provides bonus damage if you level up the skill. Is that bonus damage per low hero, or just you just get one? Do you guys know? I feel like it'd be OP if there was multiple heroes lower. Because 28 damage at level 4 per low hero could be some pretty serious damage output.
No,
I'm pretty sure it might be per hero. I'm not entirely sure. I still think the hero, though, isn't like incredibly broken. I think it's still really exploitable mid. Like if you put a Shadow Fiend or a TA or even a Storm mid against him, I think you can still win the lane pretty easily and zone him out. But it does make him a little bit more useful in team fights. Whereas before, if you try to initiate on somebody, you would just get blown up. Now you're like a literal race car.
Yeah. Do you think this is more centered towards being... Because I know he's supposed to be a ganking hero, but a lot of people play him as carry, at least in the pub scene. So does this kind of I don't know if it affects the competitive scene at all, but does this make him more of a ganker in the pubs?
You might see him in a pocket pick once in a while with a hero like you see Nature's Prophet a lot, right? Pick. So I think if you can give vision globally, and then use the Nature's Prophet ult and stuff like that,
right.
you could get some. Yeah, you could get some. That
That's
was the first thing
crazy.
I thought of.
If
It's
any
like, you have
hero,
yeah.
if any heroes below 50%, you can see them on the map, no matter where they are. That's pretty crazy.
So if you have a Zeus, Spectre, Nature's Prophet, you might see some teams that
That's true.
Heroes like that really well. I was just thinking to myself, like, how annoying would it be if you had to play against a Nature's Prophet and a Bloodseeker that would constantly hunt you around the map?
Add
Like,
him
if
to
you're
the
a
list of
support
the
hero,
global heroes now.
imagine if you're a support hero, right? And then you've got like 300 HP and then you just die walking back to base.
It's me like Zeus Refresher Eggs, where you just like Zeus ults twice just to save the Bloodseeker somewhere on the map.
Yeah, that's pretty
Full
awesome.
speed. Okay.
Honestly,
So
if nothing else, it's entertaining, and I don't think it's OP
Yeah.
on any level.
And I think it'll give a lot of ability for people to outplay people with huge movement speed, and that's sometimes. I mean, Bloodseeker was already pretty fast, but like having an obscene amount of movement speed means people are gonna have to like change their scroll speeds and shit when they play this hero. Like,
Yeah, I don't understand how you're actually if I have lower heroes, how you're actually going to control your hero from like stopping and stuff like that. Feels like it's going to be really difficult.
I'm assuming, like you guys saying, because well, I think the charge might have been. I'm talking about Dota 1 restrictions here. Charge on Spirit Breaker might have been because it was a spell and they did some weird programming, but I don't know how this is going to work in Dota 1 if everybody else is right. You know what I mean? I don't know if. Well, we'll see. Because it's not even out yet. That's the weird thing. Never seen Dota 1 parity patch like this not come out before Dota 2, which is really odd. But I guess that's good for us. I mean, that's the weird thing about this patch. It came out of nowhere as well. Did you guys have any idea that something like this would come out
Nope.
this week? Okay, so I'm not the only one. That's good. Brewmaster, which one of my favorite heroes of all time, and he's getting some big love. So agility increase, which means he's going to get more procs from his Drunken Brawler, I believe it's called. Drunken Haze is now 200 AoE, which is great because that's a very underused skill, I feel like. Thunderclap is now dispellable, which is one of those things you'll see across the board being more consistent for every hero, for a lot of heroes at least. Primal Split Selection Order. What was the order before?
It was Fire, Earth, Storm.
Okay.
It's bugged basically. It was supposed to be Earth, Storm, Fire. Everybody wants to leave the stun, but this like the bug was you'd have to tab to Earth and then stun, and it actually messed me up a couple times
I thought
too.
that was my personal binds being messed up, so that's good to know it was a bug. I feel a lot better about my micro skills now. But the big change for Brewmaster is a rework of Primal Split Aghanim upgrade. Instead of getting extra stats, which was honestly it was really nice for his pandas, but he just falls off late game so hardcore. Instead now each of the pandas get a skill, which honestly, like especially for the what was it when he had Aghanims before he got didn't he get crit? Didn't they change that?
It would add his passive Drunken Brawler to all of his pandas, so they would all get 25% evasion, and they would
which
all
was
get
only
25%
really
chance
super
to
useful
double.
for the Fire Panda.
Well, I mean, it was all kind of nice for all of them. It gave you a lot more survivability in the late game if they didn't have MKBs, but most importantly, you have Drunken Haze accessible for that 20-second duration that you ulti, so you can constantly spam that on the enemy's carry. And Thunderclap is also an amazing skill for attack speed reduction. It does like 50% attack speed reduction. It's amazingly good. So it gives you a lot more micro potential when you ulti, and gives you a lot more defensive utility while you ulti. So makes the hero much higher skill cap, and probably a lot more effective in team fights as well.
And I think the big change, and we'll get Blitz's opinion here, that people have to keep in mind, the cooldowns are independent, meaning you can initiate with the original panda, use all your skills, then ulti, and your skills are refreshed all over again. So do you think this changes? I mean, he was used as of like before the last big patch, and then he just died off completely. And I found him very entertaining. Do you think these changes will bring him back?
I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think the hero is going to be a lot more utilized. I thought it was pretty cool that you could you get the abilities now. Thunderclap, having Thunderclap on the Earth Panda is going to be actually huge.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Like now you've got on top of the 3 pandas, you've got an AOE ability that will actually help you lock people down aside from just like the little rock thing.
No, you initiate with the rock and then you freaking slam.
Which is like a 2-second stun. Like think about how many times a panda would split. He'd throw the rock and he'd hit like 2 times, and then they'd just run away. And you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, now you can just rock, hit for a second, clap, and continue to just wail on that guy while you micro the other stuff. It's gonna be a lot easier to solo
with
target.
Drunken Haze now.
Yeah, like
because before you'd have to like lift them in the air and then drop them with Dispel, and then you would use the rock, and it made it way too complicated, and it just did not do enough damage. But I think Brewmaster is still a really. It was like a pretty useful hero. The only issue is like things like Orchid and Sheeps and BKBs kind of countered you. And then as the game progressed, you were kind of pigeonholed into like fighting nonstop with your like Brewmaster. And if you were behind it all, you kind of just got messed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you start to lose the lead, your pandas just die instantly when they target them.
Yeah, like they're kind of like Warlock golems. They start out like incredibly strong in the beginning, and then everyone starts like two-shotting the fire one, and then it's kind of useless.
And if it
but now it has evasion.
Right. If it wasn't required before, it is 100% required to get Aghanims now on Brewmaster.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would agree. Yeah.
So that's
so good.
For me. That's the biggest. I'm most excited about those changes. I really hope to see them in competitive games. Bristleback changed a little bit. Not too much to go over. Broodmother, huge changes. And this is the one that I believe she was taken out of CM, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is for me because a lot of people are saying Bloodseeker is so broken. This is the one that's like borderline. I'd have to see it obviously, but looks broken on paper.
I'd like to start out this conversation with the fact that Broodmother has by far one of the lowest pub win rates in the entire game. That's really bad. It's like in the low 40s. It's like 43%
I believe
win
it's
rate.
bottom, very bottom.
I think
right?
Chen might, if it's either Chen or
it's like Chen,
Broodmother.
Meepo, Broodmother, something. Those three are interchangeable for pubs.
And honestly, I think Broodmother's a fairly strong hero. Like, yeah, she's countered by a lot of stuff, and she peaks off a lot late game. But I feel like I can stomp with that hero pretty easily. So this could really open up possibilities.
Well, let's go over what the actual changes are because, well, you go ahead.
No, you go. No,
by all means.
Okay. She can now basically run like Spectral Dagger, Spectre's Dagger. She can run over cliffs if she has a net there, but only on top of the cliffs. So you can basically put the net on Roshan Pit. You can run through trees. You can run through everything. So you can basically just live in a web like a legit spider. So this should open up like a lot of roleplay opportunities, which should make the game a lot more fun.
And the AoE is increased quite a bit as well.
You guys, it took so fucking long to laugh at my joke.
I didn't laugh at all, Purge.
I didn't think about how bad that was.
This is why Ice Frog buffed it, you guys. It's about role playing. Come on.
Oh, Nichan. Okay, so
Dota RPG.
I was talking to Bamboo about this, and he thinks it's like broken because you can like put it at the bottom of the tower, and like supports can't really kill you anymore and stuff like that. The big thing I noted was that if you're in the middle lane, right, you could just pull the ancients. You can do that now too on the dire side, right? Because you can just put a web in between the connecting areas and just walk through it.
Why they won't be able to get to the creep wave in time? From the dire ancients to the dire offlane?
I just mean in general, like pulling. Like if Broodmother wanted to pull.
As a support?
No. Like let's say you play offlane Broodmother, right? And then you just want to pull or stack the camps.
Oh yeah, run over there and stack it. Yeah, that's what you meant, stacking.
You can do stuff like that. Obviously, it makes her 10 times harder to kill because you just put it over the trees and then hide in between trees and stuff like that, and it makes supports have to hard lock down or like actually use a lot to kill you, like tangos and stuff like that, because you can just put it over the trees and wait over them.
I don't even know if like tangos is going to be good enough. You need like Wave of Terror or something. You need like vision and range disables. Pubs are going to cry, basically. But that's fine, because Broodmother hasn't been useful and competitive for a moderate amount of time.
I saw something on Reddit where the opposing team against Broodmother picked 5 melee, and she had a Divine Rapier and put the web on top of their Ancient, and they could not kill her because she was inside the Ancient. They literally could not reach her.
Stuff like that, though, it's going to be really difficult to deal with. I still think the hero... I'm not a big fan of the hero, because right now... Dota is like a 5-on-5 game, right?
Yeah.
And with Broodmother, she's kind of just like a bad version of Nature's Prophet. You sit in one lane and push it.
At least Nature's Prophet will join you for fights occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. And you have an ultimate that'll actually do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was feeling as well. I mean, this is some huge-ass buffs, and if you snowball, you can snowball even more now, but it's still 4v5 at the end of the day. I don't know.
She is going to be used a little bit more competitively, though, because it's going to be such an annoying hero in general to deal with.
Well, how do you even get to her if she's, like, let's say bottom lane dire side, you put a web over those trees. How do you get to her?
What if you put a web under the tower, like on the right, if you're on the dire side?
Yeah.
And they have no way of getting to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't...
They're so silly.
They have to use, like, a flying courier.
But even if you can hide over there, you can still contest her from the lane with a sentry ward. Like, she has to sometimes come to the lane to do shit.
No, but if you just want to get XP,
yeah. She will get EXP no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless they have, like...
Weird.
Maybe it'll be like Timbersaw, Beastmaster, Nature's Prophet tri-lanes versus a Brood or something. Just kill all the trees. And then drop sentries. You know what I mean?
Not mean, son?
No.
Anyway, moving on. Centaur has some changes. No big deal. Chaos Knight. I think this is cool. Chaos, since a little bit, I guess, less RNG, since you can't get great damage and great stun, basically. And tell me if I'm wrong about this. If you get like a 4-second stun, it's going to give you lower damage, and vice versa. Okay.
So that way, if you get like a 1-second stun, you at least will feel a little bit better about yourself.
So it's basically to have less ragers in the game.
Yes, and less chance for getting extremely unlucky or extremely lucky. There's going to be more middle ground, which is all around better for raging, stuff like that.
All right, these next few heroes, are there any big changes you think? Like Chen, Clinks, Clockwork?
Test of Faith being dispellable is pretty big because you can use a Diffusal Blade to counter it. Hand of God cooldown doesn't matter. Clinks, most importantly, Searing Arrows is no longer blocked by magic immunities. That means Clinks is a better anti-BKB carry. So he's good against carries that usually get an early BKB. So we might see him, because he'll still be able to do Searing Arrow damage, plus it's buffed. So it's very likely that we'll see him more often against Omni Knight, or not that you ever see Omni Knight, but Omni Knight or Luna or, you know, Gyrocopter, something like that.
Because with Clinks, you just rush
well, you don't even need the Orchid, because obviously if they're BKB, the Orchid won't do anything. But if you get a creep and you're hitting for 200, and then you also get the Clinks Searing Arrows, all of a sudden you're hitting for 260, this BKB Gyro that only has 1,000 HP, he's going to get like 6-shot tops with Strafe.
Well,
so
you'd still get Orchid, but I'm saying like even after, like once you get the Orchid and the opposing team finally gets a BKB, then you're not useless at this point. So I agree. Blitz, you agree he's going to be used more competitively now? Especially with, like, I guess he was used more as a farmer. Or was he used in the off lane? Because now it's like popular. Way easier for him.
I feel like I've never seen Clinks off lane in a pro game.
I think I've seen it a few times. I know Funnick used to use it against when he was one-on-one against a Darkseer.
Okay, yeah, it'd be like one-on-ones, but it would never be like versus a tri-lane. It's situationally good, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Moving on, Clockwork, Crystal Maiden, Darkseer. Darkseer getting more nerfs to the vacuum every single patch, it seems.
Yeah.
I guess
that spell's broken.
Needed. Yeah. I guess the bigger change is Dazzle. Go ahead.
He used to be so bad because your stun or your slow thing used to do nothing, but now
you're speaking about Dazzle, right?
Yeah, the issue with Dazzle is that your poison touch, like you had no offensive ability.
Yeah.
Your defensive ability as a support was also really minimal. So the issue with Dazzle was always like, oh, you pick Dazzle as a support? Well, we can contest now because Dazzle actually does absolutely nothing aside from right-clicking, right? And the heal and the grave at early levels are also really useless. So actually having a spell that could force a tri-lane out or actually just support, like force the Darkseer out is actually really, really effective. Yeah, rather than having to like have 3 levels of poison touch minimum before you could do anything.
Level 2 poison touch slowed a little bit, but it really wasn't that much at all. It was like if your poison touch wasn't level 3, there's no point getting poison touch basically. So except for like TP cancels, that'd be the only reason, or doing 64 physical damage over 8 seconds or something. So it's very good. It scales really nice now. Honestly, it really does. It does like a kind of okay heal at level, or slow at level 1. It does a slightly better slow at level 2. Level 3 does a really good slow, and level 4 it has the 1-second stun on it or something like that, or 3 seconds.
Do you think this makes him viable? It's been a long ass time since I've seen a Dazzle.
I don't know. He's better as a support hero that can contest something. Before he couldn't contest shit. Now he can actually contest somebody with low levels, which is important. So it like opens up his opportunities of how you can play him as a hero. Like, you don't just pull with him now. You can actually contest a Windrunner and trade hits or something. Or, like, with a Dazzle and a Faceless Void, you can actually kill somebody, you know? Like, instead of before, all he could do is, like, heal your melee hero when they're next to the opponent, it was so worthless. And Weave is also slightly changed so that it lasts longer, but it does less over time at level 6, I think, which could encourage it.
Weave is seriously, like, an amazing ultimate.
Yeah, it is, but you have to time it perfectly and preferably catch all the right heroes, so... Weave is better encouraged to grab early game, but overall Dazzle's main problems of needing too many skill points early to be vaguely useful is slightly lessened, moderately lessened. I would dare say. I don't know.
Okay,
I would like to see him
on
play more.
to Death Prophet, who I don't think just the general style of her fits with the way the game's going right now. But regardless, her spirits do Yeah, it doesn't seem like that much more damage. Really, that's a lot of freaking damage. Extra damage you're going to be doing. Because that's each spirit.
It's like 20% more damage over time with our ulti, which I think was needed because it didn't do enough burst in the past. So
better hero might see it once in a while,
Yeah.
but
just like a pocket
still,
strat or something like that.
Yeah, it's still hard to control them, and people still just kind of run away.
Yep.
Okay, Disruptor. Now, some changes here and there. I mean, I guess which one was it? The kinetic field AoE has just been increased at like every single patch, like the last 3, it seems like. But the big change is Static Storm. So AoE has been increased, the max damage has been increased, and more importantly, Aghanims, which I don't know if it's more importantly, because I guess you have to have like a Disruptor mid to be able to farm this up. But Aghanims is insanely good now, or has an Aghanims obviously, which is insanely good.
I know Bulba really likes playing this hero mid.
Yeah. That's like the only person I know that plays Disruptor mid.
Yeah. And it's actually really big now because if you get Aghanims on Disruptor now, it's like a really good counter to items like BKB, right? Where
Nobody even said what it does yet, by the way. I think
it does stuff, bro.
Yeah.
It basically is a Doom.
No, nobody mentioned what the actual Aghanims does yet. So if anybody hasn't read this, then okay.
No, okay, so it silences items and lasts an extra 2 seconds, which
is what Doom's ulti does. It prevents items and
it's like an AoE Doom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For 2 seconds, and it's awesome.
It's really
good.
Or
no, not for 2 seconds. It's forever.
Yeah.
It's so good because it means that you can initiate with the if your hero doesn't BKB before like the Disruptor sees you, you're just gonna straight up get blown up.
Mm-hmm. I'll be perfectly honest. Disruptor for me had one ridiculously good skill, which was Glimpse, and then the rest were okay. Now, within Aghanims, you have 2 ridiculously good skills.
And I'd like to say Chain Lightning's kind of okay now, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Kinetic Field.
His first skill does 400 damage with 4 skill points, which is pretty good.
Just slowly
but it's so silly now because the AoE of it is so large because now you can't even back or force or TP out of it or anything. You're just stuck. That's so awesome.
All right, Doom got changed a bit, but nothing too big. I think like the Aghanims thing. Nobody picks up Aghanims on Doom. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right. Nobody does.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, honestly, when it came out, I was so excited. I was like, "That's gonna be the coolest thing ever." But on paper, meh, never gonna do it. Any heroes coming up here? I guess Drow Ranger. That's a pretty big increase in damage ratio. No longer affects creeps. And actually, I tested this in game. Her ulti, I don't know if it's broken right now, but it's not activatable at all. But essentially, what this does is, if you guys remember back in the day when she was originally changed, the aura worked globally on creeps. And now it kind of does, but you have to actually click it. I'm guessing it costs 0 mana. Am I wrong about that?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Just lets you apply Precision Aura to all the creeps globally, which is range creeps, catapults. It might work on Eidolons or things like that. So it allows for a push strat if you want to use Draw Ranger that way.
So they added it initially as a passive, then they got rid of it completely as far as that effect on creeps globally, and then they added it as an active. So does this change anything?
They nerfed her slightly with her ulti as well to compensate this, by the way. This means that you can grab your Precision Aura early and it won't mess up your last hitting as much because the range creep getting an extra 5 or 6 damage is actually a huge amount. Other than that, I think it gives her slightly more situational use. I think it's good.
Okay, we have Earthshaker. Are you just going to say agreed?
No, I do agree. Okay. That was well spoken.
Okay, Earthshaker, I guess that's for Carry Shaker, extra 100%. Or extra damage on the enchant total. And I don't understand the fissure range increased by 100. It was freaking long to begin with. But we never see him, I guess.
He's packing, man.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Elder Titan getting a nerf, which a lot of people are thinking that he needs more of a nerf. What do you guys think?
No, I think this is... Actually, I think the aura should be nerfed.
That's what everybody's saying.
Is ridiculous. But this is a good start because that means the mid Elder Titan, him losing 40 damage off of his first Ancestral Spirit is really big. Before you could just spam it and right-click people, and now the damage being lowered from the beginning by 40, that's actually quite huge from a mid-player perspective.
It's what, 30%? 33% of the entire nuke at level 1 has been scaled off. That's a huge, like a level 120 damage for a level 1 nuke is obscene. Like most level 1 nukes do 80 to 90 damage about. So the fact that it did 120 at the start is kind of crazy. So it's good.
And now we see Enigma getting... this is insane. So
I love this so much.
Yeah, so I mean, Enigma's, like, I guess TI2 was ridiculously strong. Nothing was really changed. Maybe it's slight nerfs here and there, but now it's like not seen at all. And something that I always notice, Midnight Pulse, like, you'd never use it because it's not feasible to use Midnight Pulse and then your ultimate. And I still don't think it's feasible, but with an Aghanims, which is now new, you could never get that before. I guess you could get it before, but never do anything if you just want the stats or whatever. It adds Midnight Pulse to your black hole, and that stacks with Midnight Pulse, which I don't think that's that big of a deal because you're not going to use Midnight Pulse anyway in most situations. This deals a hell of a lot of damage now.
It's so sexy. I want to build eggs on him constantly now.
Yeah. Well,
but you have to get at least Blink first, or
yeah,
maybe
exactly.
Or Lincoln's maybe.
So does this put him back competitively?
No, nobody's going to build it still, probably. I think like mech is still more important. Well, I mean, you can get there, and the stat buildup is actually good for him, but I think it's cool, honestly. It gives you... You could like legitimately carry with Enigma now, in some ways. I don't know, like if you Midnight Pulse and then you Black Hole...
With the Radiance. You got to have a Radiance split.
Okay, that's pushing things.
No.
You're doing 14% of their total HP for up to 4 seconds while they're in the Black Hole. Yeah. So that's like, what, half their life? That's literally half their life.
Not to mention the damage from... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you're doing half of everybody's life in the Black Hole if you channel it for 4 seconds. It's really cool. I think it's a lovely addition. Makes it really cool, rather than just like increasing the duration.
It's a lovely addition?
I said that, yes.
Okay.
I think it's like one of the most beautiful things.
Purge 2013. It's a lovely addition. Congratulations. Anyway, moving on. Enchantress, not too big of a change there, although that spell I feel like is ridiculous if you get it leveled up, so just buffing it even more. Void. Time Walk tweaked a bit, but Chronosphere being increased by 50, which means there's going to be that much more Veil submissions with that. I look forward to that for sure. No big... I don't think that's enormous enough to really have a conversation about. Huskar, agility reduced, and Berserker's Blood is not displayed with Doom, but really the Huskar, at the end of the day, the big nerf was not being able to attack while in ethereal form. I guess I want to talk about Invoker because
the agility reduction is actually pretty big, though. It's a lot of agility. He lost a lot of agility there. That was like his best skill, wasn't it? Wasn't his agility gain? Oh, his agility is just better at level 1, I think, than his strength was in the past. But it's a pretty big attack speed and armor reduction, so he's weaker to physical damage.
Is he in captain's mode, or is he still disabled?
He's not.
Okay. Invoker. Are these changes going to change anything? So EMP, I don't think... okay, so 50% of the mana drain from heroes goes back to Invoker, and I think the huge change is you get 2 spells no matter what.
Yeah, the second one's a lot better.
Well, the first one makes Quas Wex Invoker a lot more viable. Before you almost had to go to Exort, otherwise you did no damage. Mm-hmm. And the second one obviously means that from the beginning you can actually pressure really, really hard by getting something like Forge Spirit and Cold Snap off the bat, and then being able to queue another spell on top of that. So really good Invoker players are going to be able to abuse the shit out of this.
Mm-hmm. Wisp, which I refuse to call IO or EO, whatever they want to pronounce it. Tether, instead of stunning, now does 100% slow and attack speed, or movement speed and attack speed slow, which is quite a nerf. But considering he was banned every single game, probably...
I think it's a nice and worthwhile nerf. That's a lot of slow. Oh, it's attack speed as well. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. It's better than I thought it was. Attack speed slow is really good.
So 100% slow, for people that don't know, is essentially like being sheeped. You move literally 100 move speed, right?
Mm-hmm. I believe so.
Okay. So does that change anything competitively?
Yeah, quite a bit. You won't see Chaos Knight as much because people are going to have reaction time abilities. Like you will get tether stunned from being reality rifted, and then you get to try to dodge the Chaos Knight stun, or you dodge the Chaos Knight before he stuns you. Mm-hmm. And in the past, if you got reality rifted, you were dead every time. So
that's true. You can.
There's reaction time now.
What was the Chaos Knight changes? Oh, never mind. I thought they'd change something. Never mind. I'm thinking of Sven. To come soon. You can dodge Sven stun now. Just a little sneak peek. Jakiro, Liquid Fire. This is something that was really annoying, although I never really play support, so I can't really feel the pain, but I can understand being able to use the orb whenever you want it, as opposed to whenever it's off cooldown, which prevented you from attacking because you didn't want to do damage over time to something. Don't think that really changes too much as far as Jakiro is concerned. Juggernaut, huge changes for Juggernaut, I think. Healing Ward, which is, I think, the biggest change. 150 extra move speed. So, I mean, considering Juggernauts get like drums and stuff like that, and S and Y, or just Yasha for move speed, you're going to outrun your freaking Healing Ward every time. And now it's not going to be quite the case, which that's probably the most broken skill he has, if you think about it. and now it's much harder to kill. What do you think? And of course, sorry, Omni Slash cooldown's been reduced with
Scepter?
Is it with Scepter? Omni Slash cooldown
Yeah.
reduced? Yeah, okay, with
It's
Scepter.
Scepter cooldown.
And Ethereal, it doesn't do damage, but it doesn't stop your ult completely, so there's no direct hard counter to that now. And you can use
well, it's still hard
Omni-Slash
counters it,
items.
but not as much in a team fight when there's a lot of other stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
It does make it a lot. It does make the hero a little bit more useful, but I still think he's like a bit all-in-ish of a carry.
You consider
I
him a
think
carry
he,
still? Instead of like a utility kind of guy?
I mean, carry isn't like he's gonna play the one for you.
Really? Is that
Most of the
normal?
time,
I mean, yeah.
when they do pick
Well,
him,
Yeah,
he
he's
has to
just playing
farm.
the one.
Period.
Yeah.
Well, I figured he'd be like a side carry.
Well, it's either aggressive tri-lane. I mean, sometimes people do off-lane Juggernaut, but
That's pretty rare.
it's not important arguing it, honestly, at this point.
The healing word is, I think, for me, the biggest change by
The
far.
movement speed's nice, but it's not like
You don't think it's huge?
game-breaking.
It's not. Yeah, I don't think
Any
it's
good player's
groundbreaking.
gonna attack it. All it takes is one attack. Like,
How dare you? Maybe that's the next thing they add, which is something they've added to a couple other things, which we'll get into, where you have to attack something a certain amount of times as opposed to HP.
yeah, 1 instead of 1 HP.
Yeah. Keeper of the Light, not a huge change. Kunkka being buffed yet again. The ultimate just does so much freaking damage as long as you can hit it. I mean, 600 AoE damage is insane. That's like...
That's still the thing, though, that you have to hit it.
Yeah, true enough. Hey, haven't seen my Kunkka Blitz. Come on. Hit it every time.
Every time I see
Leshrac.
it competitively, people just run at you as soon as you get torrented and miss it completely.
Yeah, well, that's true enough. Leshrac getting some change. I don't think that really changes too much. What does this mean that cast point improved for Diabolic Edict?
Means the amount of time it takes to cast the spell.
Oh, they need to change that for every single one of his spells. Seriously.
It's not exactly true. It means the animation is the same, but the time at which the spell is cast, and then you can cancel the animation.
I see.
So if the cast, the whole animation is like 1 second or something, in the past you could do 0.7 and then start attacking. Now it's 0.5. So that means it's like an attack animation, basically. Like Crystal Maid is a horrible attack animation, but you can cancel it early.
So is Leshrac stun like 2 seconds? Is that what the cast point is?
No, it's not 2 seconds. No way.
Basically.
2 seconds is so much time.
I was being
It's got to be like.
Come on.
It's got to be like 1 ups.
It's ridiculous, though. Okay, anyway, Lich. These are some. Now, Lich, I think I guess he could have before be like a side lane solo, even more now. So Frost Armor has been halved against. Has half effect against range charge, which it had 0 effect, if I'm not mistaken, on range charge before. It stacks with Frost Nova, the slow that is. Sacrifice has been changed. The cooldown has been increased, a little bit of a nerf there, but the mana gain has been increased. It no longer denies enemy XP. This is huge because that's the main reason that he was in the side lane in these very rare cases. But obviously, you can still do it out of range and still get the same effect. But the other side to that is when you convert your own creep, you get XP, which is insane.
From your own creeps.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crazy. Does this?
Mid-lich, man. You're gonna
I
hit
feel like
level
this
6
is-
in like 4 minutes.
Yeah, seriously. Like, do you guys see this being? I feel like this is something that can start right away, being competitively used again.
It still doesn't
I
have
think,
a stun, and good
yeah,
players
but
will
I
not
think-
die to chain.
Mini stun.
I think a mid-lich, though, could be really annoying. Kind of like the way OD is, where he astrals you and then denies a creep or something like that. But now it's the other way around, right? Where you don't get the last hit gold, and at the same time it gives him experience. So it's like for every wave you're going to get like 1 more creep than they do.
Lich has pretty high movement speed, right?
Yes.
For an
It's like
intelligence hero?
315.
So I feel like even in mid lane, you can still deny the creeps, like completely XP wise for the opposing mid, and still gain the XP. So that get the best of both worlds.
The thing I'm most scared of is his kill potential at 6, though, because if you just have like 2 Frost Novas and a Chain Frost, you can kill a lot of heroes with that. Even in offlane situations, I've been able to kill carries quite easily just because he's super fast. If you get a boots advantage, or if they have boots and you have boots, and you can do 2 Novas and just right click a lot, it's pretty easy to kill people. I don't know. And if he gets a level advantage on top of that, he's going to be able to burst people. I mean, he doesn't even need Chain Frost to bounce. You just need to like land a Nova, Chain Frost, and then Nova 1 more time if they don't have a blink, or if they don't kill you or stun you, I guess.
Lifestealer nerfs. I don't think these are too huge, but I guess the bigger ones, the open wounds and infest cast point, because like infesting a creep, it's not going to be like instantaneous now, so it'll take a little bit of time, but he's still going to be very strong. Lina attack range has been increased a bit. Lion, I think these are the bigger changes. The mana drain, which nobody seems to really take advantage of has been increased from 4 to 5 seconds. But I think the bigger changes is the hex, especially level 1. 2.5 second level 1 hex is pretty insane.
It's good.
Not insane, just good?
It's fine. It's a nice scaling change that could give you more mana drain early if you want to at a sacrifice for cooldown.
All right, Lone Druid, some changes, not a big deal. Although they keep increasing the bounty for the Spear Bear. They really want people to kill that freaking bear, apparently. Luna. So tell me if this changes things for her. So, well, I'll go to the thing that I think is not as important, unless it's in a pub game. If you get a Scepter on Luna, the beam count will be removed completely, which means you can solo heroes completely. But I don't think competitively you're really going to see that. But Moonglaves is the big thing. It's been nerfed a little bit as far as the damage bounce being reduced, but it'll bounce to units that are already hit. So if there's 2 heroes or whatever, they'll bounce between each other.
I think that's actually really big. It makes it so she does actually more damage, because even though the wave damage is reduced, as long as you're only hitting less than like 3 targets, or 3 or less targets, you're actually going to be doing a bit more damage than you were before. And it makes farming like really, really quick now, especially in the jungle.
Yeah, that's true. Especially if it's like a Ursa camp or something.
Yeah,
or
it'll
a
destroy
Hellbreath
that
Smasher.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Lycan. Armor increased by 1, base damage increased by 5, Howl has been increased a bit, and the wolves will almost take no damage magically. Does this change things for Lycan? I mean, I don't. He can't jungle still, unless
He can lane
I think
better.
the armor's going to help with him tanking a bit.
He can lane a lot better now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's it. Do you think he's going to be played? I think remember when the days when he was completely broken and people were
Because he
sick of him.
could jungle ridiculously fast without any help. And now he can't do that. But he can lane better. His wolves are more magic resistant. They still die to physical damage, but you don't have to worry about them getting just easily blown up in team fights as much.
He was what Nature's Prophet is now, where you would just jungle, come out with like ridiculous amounts of farm, and then split push like crazy.
Yeah. Now you have to actually commit a lane to him still, as opposed to the jungle. Okay. Magnus turn rate improved. I guess that's more for blinking skewering because he's fat and can't turn around too fast. I guess that helps with the initiations and whatnot. Medusa. I like this change. Mystic Snake now does pure damage when people are in stone form. So it's kind of like when she uses. Oh, she looks like a man. I'll just say he. When he uses his ult and people are turned to stone, it's like, okay, one of my skills is actually useless now.
Yeah.
And now
it would do 0 damage. It would drain mana, I think, but that's it.
Yeah. So I think that's a nice change. Meepo, this is the bigger change. So some slight changes here and there, but the big thing is your ultimate. Well, firstly, the removal of the 30% stacking, which was huge to begin with, which is now removed. So that's a nerf, obviously. But your ulti, you can get it at 4 now, which means you'll be farming faster and more consistently.
Getting more XP faster.
Yeah.
You can do a double poof at level 4 instead of level 6, which gives you huge kill potential at 4.
And I think having the ulti, correct me if I'm wrong, at level 18 makes 0 difference because at that point he's just going to be leveling like crazy anyway.
Relatively. Gives him shifts his strength towards the early game more than the late game, kind of. Or the late, I suppose.
So do you consider this a major buff, slight buff, about the same?
I would say major because he can be dual laned and he doesn't suffer as much. Because you just got to get to 4 basically before you start being really good. Before you'd have to get to 6, and if you're contested or you had to support constantly in the lane, it would take forever, and it sucked. So makes him a lot better, I think. You can definitely possibly even solo mid and solo kill at 4 against a lot of heroes.
Yeah, you can also do some cool things where you can split them up and nobody knows what you're actually doing if you have like ridiculous micro skills. You could like pull for yourself. You could you could gank the other lanes by just sending another Meepo along and not having it in the like or in your lane at all times and stuff like that. So for those players that are really good with Meepo, this is like a really rewarding change buff.
Moving on to Mirana, we have not too big of a. I didn't even know that you gained attack speed from Leap, to be perfectly honest.
Oh really?
So you're a scrub.
I guess I am a scrub.
But it's because most people never use it for the attack speed. You use it to like run the hell away.
Exactly. But now instead of having to land on people, it just casts it. I think that's better. Obviously, it makes more sense. Morphling shift rate improved a bit, which I don't know how big of a deal that is. I guess it helps over time, but is that would you consider this a big buff or just
doesn't matter that much?
Okay.
No.
Naga getting nerfed yet again. I don't think that changes much for her. I think her ultimate's still the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. You're still going to see her competitively as a support.
Yeah. Nature's Prophet, just basically punishing him for losing his treants. I don't think that's too huge of a change. I mean, he's been nerfed overall though, big time. So.
Yeah, but I do think this hurts him a little more than you'd think. It's like when people were like, "Oh, the Broodmother broodlings give you a little bit more gold." People are like, "Oh, it's not."
Well, I think
too
the
big of a
difference
deal,
is
but...
those are so easy to kill as opposed to Nature's Prophet's treants.
I mean, later on in the game, though, it does make a bit of a difference, like over the course of a game, especially the XP bounty.
If you guys want some reference points, so 5 treants now, that's 150 EXP. This was an old Hellbear Smasher, or not Hellbear, like large Satyr or large Dark Troll.
Really?
So that's the equivalent. They don't give that much now. This is actually, so technically 5 treants is like 20%, 30% more than one of those creeps.
No
so
kidding.
it's a decent amount. It's like a hero level in the early game.
Yeah, exactly.
Necrolyte base armor increased. Wish they would. So actually, the funny
they had
thing about
do that.
Yeah, the funny thing about Necro is his Aghanims is like not even useful because people don't want to buy back anymore.
I told people that like the Aghanims in general is just not very good on
it
him
was such a
to begin
cool
with.
idea though, you know, such a cool idea. Now they need to do something else with him. I don't know what they need to do, but honestly, they should speed up his heal.
His heal?
Yeah, I think it's too slow.
They also need to make the range a bit longer because what sucks is if another team pushes on you, you have to be almost like melee range to like stop the push, and then you just get blown up.
I thought when they changed his ability to where his ult, where you get the kill no matter what, as long as the unit dies, I thought that point was when he would be used more because of the regen he gets from it. But I don't know if the one armor is going to do it. You know, it's not exactly Doom status, so can't say for sure. But anyway, Nightstalker. This is so in combination with everything else that we've seen, indirectly buffing Nightstalker. His darkness now causes enemy vision to be reduced by 25%, and this includes wards. This is crazy. Awesome. I love this hero, so I love to see buffs like this. What do you think this changes?
I think it's really cool. Makes your ulti more situational, especially because you don't have to rely on it as much during daytime because the periods are lower.
Yeah.
So you can use it more to actually save for team fights and things, which could change the scope of some team fights.
Yep, and the biggest thing too is that night, the cycles are a bit better for you. Early, the first night, I think actually kind of hurts you a little bit because you're such a low level and you can't really utilize the first night.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, but at the same time, the darkness buff is actually huge. Instead of just making a night, it actually has like a pretty profound effect, and it really helps like everybody on your team, right? Because it makes ganking easier. It makes team fights a lot easier when you're not able to see like everywhere around.
Yeah.
And it just makes Nightstalker a lot more viable.
I'd really like to see. I want to see a comparison of like what a ward vision looks like when this is activated.
I remember in the beginning of Dota, like Nightstalker was like the premier mid hero, and then he like fell completely out of popularity. But at least this way, you're gonna see him utilized a lot more.
Moving on to Nyx Assassin, we're gonna see a lot more fails because his impale is now not targeted anymore. You have to actually click. Point and click. I guess it was both before, kind of like. I guess Lions is still both.
Yep, Lions is still both.
So it's a nerf to some degree.
It's a fairly good nerf, honestly. Yeah. It means ganking with him is gonna be a little bit harder.
Spike Carapace will not stun the owner of a summoned unit, which is good. And this is actually we're gonna see more of the summoned stuff with Necro being buffed indirectly and directly very shortly. Ogre Magi. I don't think this changes things, but I still like the direction this is going. So Ignite, which is a lot of people consider just a completely useless skill. The duration has been increased by a little bit. It's now dodgeable, which is one of those consistency things that we're going to be seeing. Ignite has a multicast, which has always bothered me. That didn't really have a multicast element to it, but now it has 1400 AoE. Goes to a separate unit, so it have 2 in 1 basically. And I think the Unrefined Fire Blast doesn't matter because nobody.
But I have a question here. If you 4 times Ignite multicast, do you throw out like 4 ignites? If so, that's so cool.
I doubt that. I didn't think about that, but
that's gonna be easily cooler than a Fire Blast multicast. Like who cares? Like if you just see shit fly out, it's gonna be awesome.
It's bad it doesn't stack though. It doesn't stack.
I don't care. It'll hit like random creeps and they'll die. Like that's awesome.
I don't think this changes anything for him, but I could be wrong. What do you guys think?
They also
on Ogre?
Those are also AoEs, by the way, because as you grab your ulti, Ignite becomes AoE. So you could hypothetically coat the entire battle with Ignite.
Yeah.
That's really good. And the duration is increased. I really like Ignite. Bloodlust is, as I play Ogre more and more, I keep regretting maxing out Ignite. So I don't think this is going to change that much personally, because Bloodlust is still too good, but I don't know. It's kind of cool. It makes the Ignite Fire Blast build more viable, I guess. If you want to go mid with it, for example. Like if you have extra EXP, I think you could maybe go Fire Blast Ignite. Mid but if you're playing a support role, you shouldn't get more than maybe 2 Ignites.
We need a Purge plays of Ogre mid with
Dude, Kevin is the only person that plays like Ogre carry.
Dude, Ogre carry's legit. Come on. Legit.
Battle Fairy Vlads, man.
It's too bad that I wish that he was played more and that he was played more as a farmer, because Aghanim's is so cool on him. I mean, it just makes him a much more entertaining hero to watch. But regardless, it's probably not going to change anything. Omni Knight, Degen Aura, blah, blah, blah. Okay, not big changes to him. I hate him anyway because I always lose against him. He's so hard to play against.
You sound bad.
Yes, I am. OD, although I am top 10 Centaur, so, can't be too bad. But anyway, OD, base damage reduced by 3, not a huge change. But I think the bigger change, obviously, is Essence Aura will not be triggered by items. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, ODs would pick up like an early Tranquil and Buckler.
Yeah, and a
like
Buckler.
that.
And it made it the worst thing in the world to lane against.
Yeah. So he's still really strong mid, but this obviously makes him not 100% broken.
Yeah. What I like what Ice Rock does in general is he doesn't, when people feel the hero is like too good, he doesn't just like nerf them into the ground. He just does like subtle changes. So still a viable hero, just not as annoying as he used to be, and I won't complain about him so much anymore.
I doubt that. You're
still gonna complain about him.
You're still gonna complain. PA Stifling Dagger now shares crit chance with Coup de Grace, which is very cool. It's now dodgeable, which again, one of those things. Stifling Dagger damage rescaled, so a little bit of a nerf on the late game usage, but I guess it's half damage to heroes. So this would be 90 times 4, so that's 360 damage to heroes, not including the 4x crit that you could get. It's not like a huge buff. It's still RNG based, but I think it's still a cool idea.
You can like blow up support heroes like really easily now.
Did you guys mention that it does half damage to heroes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
How dare you not listen to me?
I definitely wasn't, so you got me
Phantom
there.
Lancer
I just like really wanted to make sure, because I think the math was at max level 16 with level 4 dagger. I think it does 400 pure damage, which is still really good. That's like a level 1.
It should be really high.
It should
Finger
be
of Death or
360,
something,
right?
but
it's 90 now because they nerfed it.
What?
Yeah.
See, 90 times 4, 360. Wait, is
Doesn't
it
do
4.5 crit?
Yeah, I think it's 4.5.
Okay, times 4.5. Is that right? Am I crazy?
I think that's
Is my
correct.
math horrible?
The math works out. It's like 400, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, 90 damage
times 4.5.
times 4.5.
Which is 360 plus half of 90, which is just over 400.
So 405. Okay, cool.
Did you use a calculator?
I did, and I failed.
Jesus.
All right, yeah, whatever. We'll just move on, forget that happened. Phantom Lancer, Spirit Lance is now dodgeable. It doesn't really change much, but one of those consistency things.
Yeah.
All right, I want to talk about this, Pudge. So we'll get back to the Blink Dagger thing in a second. If you can hook a unit. Okay, no, skipping ahead. Nerf with magic resistance. Dismember strength multiplier has been increased. People don't really get Scepter on him too often, though. The big change, though, is you can get Blink Dagger on him, and we'll get to Vengeful Spirit as well. And the reason for this, that it was disabled before, is because you could just hook people into the trees and just leave them there. But now, when you do that, they can leave for a 5-second period.
Not
it's like a
just
spectral
leave them
dagger
there,
deal.
but like if you trap somebody, if you hook somebody in the trees with you, it's impossible for them to get away.
Right.
Like even if they have a stun or they're vaguely farmed. So it would just be OP. Or you could hook people to unpassable terrain, like up onto a hill or something.
So this, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, I apologize. Let me preface things. I played Dota 1 for 4.5 years. Then I played Han for 2. And now I played Dota 2 for over 2 years now. This is a Han thing.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. But I think it's probably going to be tweaked in the future, because if you think about it, if let's say it's a Pudge and a Vengeful Spirit with Blink Daggers, they can keep them in the trees for 5 seconds. You know what I mean? With Dismember.
Well, Venge breaks trees when you swap.
Does he? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the problem with that before then? Why couldn't you get Blink on her?
I mean, you can still swap
terrain,
people to
though.
high ground.
Okay, terrain then. Okay, yeah.
I think this is still kind of abusable, though, because if you just get a Yule's Scepter, you can hook somebody uphill, you can like Yule's him, and then you can dismember immediately afterwards, and that's more than 5 seconds, which means, therefore, they can't do the free pathing anymore if you don't hook them.
Right.
So you'd still get bullshit kills and be able to trap people in ridiculous ways.
The
So
way that the
it's gonna be a lot of
other-
a pub abuse, dude. It's
Yeah,
gonna be a lot
I
of pub
agree.
abuse.
I think it's going to be tweaked though, and the thing that the other game that shall not be named did it was if any hero was on a part of terrain or an area of the map that you're not supposed to be anyway, you could just walk freely until you're back on normal terrain, which I kind of prefer because this is kind of it's a little bit arbitrary to some degree because you can't abuse it, but we'll see how it goes. It's the good direction though. I like it.
Yeah.
Pugna. Buffs all around for Pugna, which is great to see because he is one of the least played heroes, both competitively and pub. Decrepify amp damage on allies has been reduced, so less of a cost for getting hit from magical and whatnot for allies. The damage on enemies is increased. The Nether Ward, which is the big, I think, buff, especially towards the later game, it takes 3 hits, which I hate to bring it up again. This is something from that other game as well that's been implemented. And then Life Drain restores mana if you're sucking off a hero with full HP, basically.
So the important thing to talk about for the 3 hits is that it's 3 hero hits. That means Netherward is not as hard countered by Treants or Enchantress or Chen creeps or Visage Birds, for example. I played Pugna versus Visage Birds recently. It was horrible because I'd place the ward in the trees and then the birds would come over and they'd just like 2-shot the ward and it would die. And I was like, well, crap. So then I'd have to like place the ward in the middle of our team. That way it was protected or something. So it's good because the hard counter to Netherward is creeps and NPC stuff, and it's not as hard countered. And it also scales better late game when people hit for 300 already.
So tell me, Blitz, is this enough to bring him back from the dead?
I still think the hero's like way too all-in-y. Like, the cool thing about him is the blast, right? You get to push towers really quickly.
Yeah.
AoE spell doesn't really cost a lot. You can essentially spam it, but you're still like the weakest piece of shit. The game, you still don't really do a whole lot of damage. BKB wrecks the shit out of you, and I mean, it makes him a little bit more useful. And the ward is going to be like 3 times more annoying, but I still think he's just too weak of a hero, and I think he's too item dependent too. Because you need like a minimum of a mech to like do stuff and live.
That's unfortunate to hear. I was looking forward to seeing him, but I guess I can see. He is really freaking squishy. So
yeah, you could still use him. I think. Like I've seen teams once in a blue moon use him. I just don't know if this is enough. We'll see though.
Decrep's a lot better for allies too. It does less damage to them, so you could use him for survivability purposes against specific heroes.
Well, do you see him?
PA
I mean,
or something.
If he was picked in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, as usual, which I might be, he was used as a mid solo.
Yeah.
I think this changes him so he can actually be utility in like a different lane other than mid.
I've played him like that before, and it's not too bad, but you still don't have a stun, and you're still countered by stuns and nukes. So we'll see. I like the fact that he doesn't have a stun, though, because it makes him very unique. He's a very, very unique hero, and all of his skills, I think, have uses. Life Drain maybe being the most boring of them, but it's cool now, too, because you can drain mana from heroes if you're full HP. I don't know, maybe he can be a support now, especially with that change. It makes you kind of farm independent a bit against an offlane hero. Who knows?
All right, Queen of Pain, Shadow Strike mana cost rescaled, not a big deal. Ricky, Smokescreen. The cast range has been increased, and you can actually use items and your skills, not including your blink, I guess, without coming out of invisibility. I don't think this is as big of a change as people are saying, but it's nice.
Doesn't matter that much.
It's nice. It's nice on heroes when you're playing against like anti-mage, and you can defusel them,
that's
and
true.
you have that half second where it's like, oh wait, what's going on? And then before they can blink, you can use the smoke as well.
Plus, you can tread switch, and you can phase boots. Grabbing either of those items and using them with their actives is completely fine now because it's not going to stop you from going in.
Yeah, that was something that I always found quite annoying. But yeah, I don't know if that's going to change a whole lot, though. We'll see.
The pubs will cry.
Really.
That's what's going to change.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of this are.
Ricky will be seen a lot more.
He's already like the most popular pub player at low level or hero at low levels. So.
All right, Rubick, telekinesis cooldown increased by 4, and the big change for him is, I guess before Aghanim's, when you got it, it would basically, if you stole an ultimate from somebody, it would take the Aghanim's version no matter what. And now, if you upgrade, let's see, Rubick can no longer steal the Aghanim upgrade of an enemy if the Aghanim, and he doesn't. Wait, Rubick can no longer steal the Aghanim's upgrade of the enemy if they have
Do you want me to
Aghanim,
do
but he
this?
doesn't. Yes,
me to-
go.
okay.
God, I hate myself.
Basically, no matter what you steal from somebody, it's gonna it's even if they have an eggs or not, it's never gonna be the eggs upgrade. It's only upgraded if you yourself purchase an eggs. So if you steal the ulti from somebody who doesn't have an eggs and you have an eggs, it will actually upgrade it to an eggs. Most importantly, it puts the cooldown down to 5 seconds, which means you can easily steal 2 to 3 abilities during a team fight. In the past, you would basically have to sit there and wait until the big ultis came out, and then you'd steal the black hole of the RP, which meant that you were mostly standing around a lot in the team fight, with the exception of throwing telekinesis and fade bolt. So this makes you a lot more dynamic, and we're going to see some super sick Rubick plays in some top 10 videos in the future, basically.
Well, do you think this changes anything? Like, is he back in the mid lane now because of this?
No, he doesn't have to go the mid lane. I think when Fluff talked about it yesterday, he said that getting an Aghanims on a support Rubick is not that unreasonable either. And maybe people will start prioritizing Ags over a Blink Dagger or a Force Staff or something. And the parts are all inexpensive as well. It's 1,000, which is reasonable. So definitely possible. Especially if you're mid, though. I think this is, I dare say, core.
Yeah.
I'd go like Force Staff this, or Force Staff Eggs or Blink Eggs or something.
Yeah, people are so sick of Rubick in the top plays, so this is gonna just add to that. I love him personally, so I would love to see this.
He'll be way
hero.
cooler now.
What's that?
It's a dynamic hero. I
Yeah,
think it's awesome.
he's made for top plays, so I don't see anything wrong with it. Sand King changed a bit. I don't think too huge. I think Sand King's kind of one of those forgotten heroes. I love him. I love like him and Earthshaker, great initiators, but you just don't see them as often as you used to. Shadow Demon.
It's that level 1 stun, man. That's so awful.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's the thing. Like they should match it up with Earthshaker because his fissure is just as long every level. It's just is it the stun duration that changes in the damage?
His stun duration is the same at all levels. Maybe they should make the range not scale and make the stun duration scale or something. That might
be a lot better.
Okay, Shadow Poison. I don't even know why they increased this. Like, it makes 0 difference, I feel like.
So nobody plays him right now, so they have to buff him.
Is that even, like, seriously 10 AoE?
Because he does no damage. Yeah, I know.
Okay. I mean, that's more for, like, if you're a mid Shadow Demon, I feel like, which you never see anyway. Yep. Shadow Shaman Mass Serpent Ward count increased from 8 to 10, which is quite a buff, I feel like, in addition to the fact that the placement structure has been changed, and I think that means it's easier to trap people, right?
Yes, there's a hole in the middle.
Awesome. So, prediction, just so you know. Going to see a lot more Shadow Shaman mid, and No Tail is going to be the best Shadow Shaman in the world.
Why?
Because he did that in the other game I shall not be named.
The
he
only
would
thing
trap
is,
kids left and right.
the wards are still dude. TC was the best at it.
In
TC
Dota too.
did that like that guy did it like 100 times in like comp games to get it right, and that guy was so good at it. But I still think the hero is a little too weak. Like, it's still, like I just said about Pugna, it's really all-in-ish, right? Where you have to just push with it non-stop. It doesn't do a whole lot aside from that. Not too big of a fan of the hero in general.
I kind of agree with that. Well, I'm more a fan of him as mid than, even though he has no escape mechanism, as opposed to being, I hate him as a support. Can't stand him as a support. Anyway, Silencer Intelligence Steal is an innate part of the hero rather than an element of the glaze. So basically this kind of works like Pudge's passive, right?
Yeah, you don't have to grab his orb attack, his second skill, to steal intelligence, which kind of was good, because in the past you'd be like, what if you're playing support Silencer and you don't want to grab your glaives because it's only going to do 7 pure damage because you have no int items? This way you can just grab Curse of the Silent and Last Word, and you don't have to waste 1 skill point on some shitty orb just so that you can gain int. It's
not exactly like Pudge's, because Pudge's you eventually have to level it. You just gain it back over time or whatever.
He just gets it no matter what, even without skilling it. So it's better for the first couple levels, basically. Eventually you'll grab the skill probably, but it's just a buff to support Silencer, I would say. That's about it.
Skeleton King, base intelligence increased by 5, which was much needed, obviously. Removed Mortal Strike, which is, it's just such a shame. Vampiric Aura now provides full effectiveness on ranged units, which is a huge buff for that skill. Reincarnation has been tweaked a bit. Hero still sucks balls. I feel like his ultimate shouldn't cost mana, honestly. It should just be 0 mana. Like, why even have that in there anymore?
I remember once me and Purge played against a Skeleton King that was like 6-tacked, and we were like all support heroes.
He was really far ahead. He had a lot of items.
We just like kited the shit out of him.
Yeah. We just got Rod of Atos and stuff.
Yeah. You could only stun one of us. You'd stun one of us, and
if
then
Rod of
the others would
force
staff each other and stuff, and you couldn't get near anybody. So bad of a
What do they need to do? Like, why would they get rid of Mortal Strike? It was okay. It wasn't great, but
I feel like they need to increase this guy's base movement speed, dare I say, to make him
they
really
need to make
good.
I feel like the stun should scale a little bit better aside from just the damage. I think
It stuns for 2 seconds, and it slows.
I
It's
feel
not
like
bad.
They should make
No,
him more utility and not a carry with
I
that
still think you
vampiric
can.
aura.
I still think you can like kite him regardless of that 2-second stun though, because you just don't do enough damage.
That's
Like
'cause
why would
he's
you pick him
slow
over here
and shit.
PM or something?
I say get rid of his crit, put something more utility.
No, no. If you take out his crit,
Get
he's not going to be a
rid
good
of
carry
the
anymore.
crit. That's what I'm saying. Don't make him a carry anymore.
Well, the other
What?
thing they have
Why?
to do.
What do you mean why? Just because he's a king, he has to be a carry, Purge? Huh?
It's not skeleton like
God.
attendance.
Skeleton
mouth.
utility. That's what he should
I
be
thought,
called.
you were a representative of all strength heroes, and you're telling me you should
honestly,
remove his...
it's just he's so bad. Like even
only
I
reason-
can't even
alright,
use him.
The only reason Skeleton King is bad is because he's easily kited. That's the only reason. He seriously does legit carry damage because he has 2 abilities that basically count for item slots. He doesn't have to buy Lifesteal, and he
Yes.
doesn't have to buy crit.
Okay.
So he can essentially be an 8-slotted carry in the late game.
But
like,
it's not even just kiting though. You can counter him with literally anything that burns mana.
okay, yeah, he's weak there. I agree.
Now
then
tell
you're
me
OP
if you
against
think
it, but-
if
Are we
they
really
change.
Are we really spending this time debating the Viking skeleton? Like, it's a bad hero, and I agree with you.
Okay.
There should be by the end of it, it should be like Weaver, where there's no mana cost for the ultimate.
Yeah.
Because it's really stupid that a hero like Phantom Lancer or Anti-Mage makes him completely worthless.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you
game-
take away his best ability. How stupid is that?
All right, Skywrath Mage. Int growth has been increased a bit, and the Aghanim's upgrade basically reduces cooldown to 0 at the highest level, which is cool, but still costs, what is it, 800 mana for his ultimate?
You're gonna use it twice, and then you're screwed.
You need like an OD or something to
And
actually.
By the way, I read this in a comment somewhere. Somebody said that 0-cost manas or 0-cost spells don't proc his ulti, don't proc the Essence Aura. So,
Really?
hey, that's it might not confirmed,
Huh.
but I think that's for orbs and stuff was the thought.
see.
Maybe, but those cost mana actually. I'm not sure. I might be wrong. But regardless,
They're just adding Aghanims for everybody.
all right.
I mean, it
What do you
doesn't even
think?
matter at this
Blitz,
point.
what do you think about a Bloodstone on this hero now? After you get eggs, if you get
I
eggs?
still think I like Bloodstone on him a lot because it gives you HP, and it counters heroes like Nyx because it doesn't actually give you more int. The Bloodstone just gives you flat
counters
health
heroes like what?
and mana. Nyx?
Oh, Nyx.
I thought you said Dix.
Dix.
No,
You
he
definitely
did.
said
He
Dix.
did.
No, I definitely said Nyx.
No, he's got something on his
We're
mind,
both
it's all good.
converting Dix.
Because
Converting
before,
Dix.
you know, when you played against a Nyx and he mana burns you, it does
A
insane
billion
amounts of damage.
Yeah.
But if you get a Bloodstone, then you just get flat. I think going like Bloodstone Aghanims is going to be okay, but you're still, I mean, a 0-second cooldown when your mana pool gets evaporated by like one ultimate alone. You can only fire it like twice or 3 times tops.
Yeah,
I
even
just
with
don't
the
think it's
Bloodstone,
worth
it's not enough.
I feel like he's still too glass cannony, and his ultimate isn't reliable enough.
And he's heavily countered by any force staff.
It's just not.
And
It's
a
not a
BKB just
realistic
wrecks
thing.
you.
It's not realistic to use it, and I think
It's
it's
just
more
cute.
they're adding Aghanims for every hero. They're trying to.
Yeah.
As many heroes as possible. Slardar, amplified damage armor reduction has been increased at the earlier levels. The sprint speed has been increased by just a bit, and the mana cost has been removed, which is cool. I feel like, and again, this is my opinion, which apparently means less than your guys, which is, I guess that's fair.
Worthless.
I feel like you shouldn't take extra damage when you use sprint. Put back the mana cost. Don't take extra damage. Because it's like, he wants to get into the battle, but then he takes a ton of extra damage. Like, I don't get it. It just doesn't synergize very well.
I think I'm okay with the mana cost going away and the amp damage being taken. Like, even, I don't know, the hero's really tanky. He has good stat gain. He has really good agi growth, I believe. So, I don't feel like haste is the reason, or the bonus damage from sprint is the reason why Slaughter is not the best hero, personally.
How dare you?
It makes him really, it's big ass movement speed for a very long time, by the way.
Yeah.
It has to have some drawbacks. 50 mana is not a drawback. Like, being a little scared about diving into 5 heroes.
Alright,
should
make
be
it
a
100
drawback.
mana, no amp damage.
You won't have any mana.
I need no amp damage on this hero. You don't understand. Alright, anyway. That doesn't, for me, Blitz, do you think that changes anything for him? I don't think he's going to be.
The mana
No.
reduction's good.
Well, I mean, it's good. It's just, I don't, like, it's not enough for me to see him used competitively, though.
You still get blown up with
Yeah.
sprint because it's like, it's a spell that makes you really weak. You're really item dependent, and I don't really think that it helps too much.
Alright, Slark, Shadow Dance duration reduced. I'm talking too fast. The cooldown has been increased, and the bigger thing, I guess, would be that you can't ever see him. I guess the only thing that works on him
That's
would
not
be
true.
AoE skills, but you can't see him.
No. Dust will work.
Really?
Track will work. Those aren't true
I
sight.
thought-
They're like
No,
Am I wrong?
I'm pretty. Yeah, you're wrong. It does
Really?
nothing removes it. Yeah, during that 4-second time, you're essentially invincible.
Like you can be by a tower.
Yeah,
and still
you can't be.
invis.
All right, I know
you can't
towers
be
work, but amp damage, track, those don't work. Bloodseeker, I guess Bloodseeker doesn't reveal invis.
Well,
I
worst
think
case
track
scenario, hit Q and then they can't see.
Yeah.
Did you say track works?
I think a track works because it's not true sight, but I don't think things like
that's
dust
my
or
thought process.
dust. I don't think dust, obsword, or I mean sentries or gem.
Sentries won't work. Towers won't work. Gem won't work.
Dust won't work either.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure dust
I'm not
counts as
sure.
true sight.
But I feel like dust would work.
I feel
Either
like
way,
dust.
a buff.
It wouldn't be consistent if he removed all those things and then couldn't get rid of dust. But even then,
Dust
you
is
can't
fair
just
because you
Q
can
one.
remove it with Dark Pact.
Yeah,
You know?
so it doesn't.
I think that's why I think it would be fair. I think giving you no option to see him outside of track and Slardar ulti would be bullshit. Like at least make dust a
Well,
possibility personally.
I mean,
Wait
most
till his
teams
Dark
have
Pact
AoE
blows
damage
and then
at this
dust
point.
and kill him. I think that would be fair personally. But
Well, regardless, he's been taken out of CM because of these changes, so I guess only time will tell how broken
it's
he
gonna be
is.
a pub monster.
Oh
now.
yeah, definitely. I look forward to playing him.
Easily get a solo kill now.
Yeah. Sniper take aim has been increased randomly. I don't know.
Not important.
Okay. Spectre, this is cool. So okay, first for his ultimate, reality cast point has been improved, so it's instant. You can use. God, I'm so bad at explaining this. You can jump to any illusion you want multiple times, basically, right?
Well,
That's so
every time you reality to them, they become you. So if you reality to an illusion, it becomes you and the illusion's gone.
Yeah,
Mhm.
advantages.
Hypothetically, what you will see people do, and I thought about this the other night, you can hotkey all of your reality illusions, and then you can tab reality to them and pull some DBZ shit. Just to
Yeah,
like
it's
teleport
gonna
on that 5 times.
You're gonna be
Awesome.
some ninja bullshit.
But every time you
It's gonna
tab
be
the one,
amazing.
it's gonna disappear. But basically you can tab to the one, kill the support really fast,
Yeah.
and then before
Go back to
reality runs
farming.
out, you'll tab to some other one. Which means specters are gonna join the fight at the start of the fight rather than reality and in the last second, because you wanna try to be able to bounce around.
That's pretty cool.
But it's really cool. I like
Yeah,
this.
I like that
change.
a lot as well. Spirit Breaker has been nerfed. I think his ultimate is the big nerf. What do you guys think? So you can actually stun him out of his ulti. Does that cancel it completely?
It
Or
has a cast time like pretty much any other spell in the game. So you can now stun him in that 1 second cast time, which I think was important. In the past, the only way to stop Spirit Breaker from comboing is you have to stun him before his bash connects, his first charge. If you did not stop his charge, he was gonna 100% get his ulti off. Unless there was like an ice path sitting right where your charge ended or something.
so does this mean that if he gets stunned while he's casting it, that it goes on cooldown, or can he still do it after he's
He'll
stunned?
have to recast it from
Okay.
0 seconds,
All right.
which is, in my opinion, completely fair and balanced. Because as soon as Spirit Breaker got to a point where his charge was going to hit guaranteed, he was always going to ulti, and there's no way to stop it. So it's like you take a guaranteed 800 magic damage or something, which was just so hard to deal with. So it still forced him into getting a BKB before he can guarantee his combo, which I think is fair and balanced, or just charging from a good location that your opponents won't see and be able to react to.
I didn't think about that. It's a good point, Purge, I have to say.
But his base attack time's also reduced, which means less bashes.
Yeah.
Because you won't attack as fast.
And something that we haven't been mentioning, but Doom has been working on everything now, as opposed to having random little.
Consistency.
Sven, Stormbolt is now dodgeable. Such a shame, but not changing anything for him.
Garbage hill.
Tidehunter, Kraken Shell damage. This is okay. So the damage block's been increased. Do people pick this up past level 1?
You do late game,
Still.
but not. You only grab
Yeah.
one early game.
I mean, does this change that though? Because I know they just get one level
No,
of it. and
I
leave.
don't think so.
It's not enough. The number is not a big enough change at all
Okay.
to make a difference.
Okay, Timbersaw mana cost for his ult has been increased. Tiny, craggy exterior, slight buffs to it. Don't think that changes too much. Treant Protector. What do you think about these changes?
It's Hero God.
Makes him really
Mental.
weak.
So living armor, you can't cast. It's like half. You can cast it half as much, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
You
it's
can't use
much
it for
worse
hits
at level
much.
1.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that was the most broken thing. That you could just cast it consistently.
Didn't you start with like 220 mana, and over time you could essentially spam it without having like.
Yeah.
You could just use like 1 clarity, but now you can't do that anymore.
Basically, in my opinion, you didn't even need a Clarity Potion on Treant
Yeah.
to have enough mana. Like, because you're not going to cast Leech Seed early on. Like, the few times I played Treant in the last week, I would cast 1 Leech Seed and more or less Living Armor whenever the hell I wanted, and I never ran out of mana.
Mm-hmm.
It was too good. And basically, this forces you to level up the hero. The most important difference is the cooldown difference. So you can't use it for passive regen anymore. You can only use it to save people, more or less. And you won't be able to save people as much. So it's a worthy nerf.
Agreed.
The hero is too good at level 1, 2, and 3. Now it forces him to get EXP, so he actually has to get EXP at a reasonable rate, so living armor becomes useful. And the cooldown is, or the mana cost is still going up as well. So he's less mana independent and less EXP independent as well.
Okay, Troll Warlord. Berserker's Rage move speed has been rebalanced. Instead of a static 20 with the 30 at the end, is now 10, 20, 30, 40. And Whirling Axe's damage reduced. Does this... I guess he's still going to be pretty freaking good, so not too big of a change as far as I'm concerned. Correct me if I'm wrong, obviously. Tusk.
Nope.
Frozen
So good.
Sigil. Kind of like the consistency thing here. Now it actually takes a certain amount of hits to kill it, which I think is a good idea. Of course, it does reduce your attack speed, so it's actually probably stronger now overall, I feel like.
Well, it's still really hard to kill.
Yeah.
I think out of the amount of hits to take to die thing, it affects Frozen Sigil the least. I think the Netherward one was really nice. But I would say this one is semi-irrelevant. It doesn't matter that much. But I still think Frozen Sigil is a really good skill, personally.
I think this is a huge change. Undying, Decay, Steel, Duration increased.
the only thing I want to mention about Frozen Sigil is it's gonna the biggest buff to this is it's much more survivable against towers more than anything else. Towers, because towers do 0.25
That's a good
instead
point,
of 1, and towers didn't get their attack speed reduced. So Frozen Sigil is really good against towers now.
Undying, Steel Duration for the Decay has been increased to static 40, which used to be just level 4. I think this is pretty big. Is this enough to bring
It's good
it
for
back,
the early
kind of?
game. I mean, Decay's obscenely good early game because everybody has about 20 strength or less, and if you remove 4 of that, you're really
Wait, what
decreasing.
scales then? What scales for this skill? I can't remember.
Cooldown, damage done as you cast it. That's it.
Okay. So
And the mana cost goes up a lot. It goes from 70 at level 1 to like 130 or 140
so
at
you
level
just leave this at level 1 at this point.
No, you want the cooldown to be low, and it also does damage.
Well, how do people skill him competitively when they play?
They either max Decay or they max Tombstone. Recently, I'm not so sure. If you have Arcane Boots, you can max Decay fairly early, but if you don't have Arcane Boots, I don't really recommend that build. I think Tombstone is better.
Okay, Vengeful Spirit. We talked about this already. I don't think we need to go over that at all. Venomancer. Lots of freaking changes for him. So Poison Nova no longer ignores Invis. A lot of people didn't know that. They ignored it before. Venomous Scale no longer as well. Doesn't ignore Invis units. Venomous Scale damage over time rebalanced to... wait, what is that? 0?
It's 0.
Starts at 0 for the first second, you mean?
It will do initial damage as the gale lands, but every 3 seconds it'll get a poison tick, and this is the damage that it's talking about, is the poison tick. So it'll do... The first Venomous Gale will still do 50 damage or 40 damage, but it won't tick over time anymore.
Poison Sting duration increased. Poison Sting DPS no longer dispels healing or disables die. That's more in conjunction with the Plague Wards now having Poison Sting. Does 50% of the damage, but still, I think that's a huge ass buff to Plague Wards. And then of course
counter push a lot easier.
Increased. So
you can counter push and push easier against creeps, and you can do damage with them. It gives you a lot of micro potential. The Plague, the EXP bounty is increased quite a bit though, so using them to harass or letting your Plague Wards die is kind of a big loss. Again, if we look at a level 3 Plague Ward, if 5 of those die, that's a previous level large creep, so it's kind of a lot of EXP. They're kind of hard to kill. But the one thing I'd like to really point out that most people aren't paying attention to, level 4 Venomous Gale does a shitload of damage. There's 5 instances of poison, if I'm not mistaken, because it lasts for 15 seconds. That's like a 600 damage nuke. 500, 600 damage magic nuke with 4 levels of Venomous Gale. And that's an AoE. That's a huge nuke.
Yeah, that's insane.
Granted, they can BKB or something, but it's actually a lot of damage. I dare say that seeing like a max Venomous Gale Venomancer is a possibility, because his nuke potential at level 7 that's like 800 magic damage, or 900 magic damage or something. It's really big.
That's insane.
Though Plague Wards are really good, so it's hard to say. All the skills are good now, I think.
Yeah, I mean... Well, okay, let's just move on, because it's just taking forever. But... Actually, we're almost done with the heroes. Viper. Poison attack cooldown has been reduced to 0 at all levels, which people have been... I feel like there's been a small outcry for that as being OP. What do you guys think?
Doesn't do that much damage at level 1.
Well, I think the big problem that I have is... And I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but when you use skills like that, it doesn't aggro creeps. It really bothers me that you can just do that. And now you can have basically no repercussion for Not that Viper's that played at this point, but still. You don't
The
think
thing
that
about
changes too
him-
much?
The thing about him is like he always like kind of crush mid, especially with the corrosive skin buff, where if you use a spell against him, like it destroys you, right?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. It works for spells now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's so annoying when you're playing Queen of Pain and you dagger him. It's like you're getting daggered yourself.
Mhm.
Every time the
'Cause it
dagger
ticks
does
every time it
damage,
ticks.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get another.
I told Purge
instance of
about that the
corrosive.
first time it happened. I
Really?
was like,
So it works
what the
each
hell?
instance of damage from damage over time?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you
Wow.
dagger a Viper, he'll do more damage to you with corrosive skin than you will with your dagger.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I remember I told Purge the first time I had to play against him. I was like, what the hell is this? And then, but the fact of the matter is, he's still kind of bad in team fights and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it actually, in some ways, this kind of hurts you because before, actually, no, it helps you. Well, it wastes a lot more mana for one.
Right.
You almost have to get a bottle because if you're gonna be spamming it from the get-go, but people get bottle anyways. But they did need to make him better in some ways because in team fights he's still kind of crappy. He's still kind of farm dependent, and if, for example, if you're against a Queen of Pain or a Puck, like you'll beat those heroes in lane regardless of this change, right? But what it does is it makes you beat them a little harder because those two heroes will crush you in team fights. Like they'll be a lot more useful to their teams respectively.
Mhm. Okay. Visage. So I have a question about this. What's the skill called that gives him magic armor?
Gravekeeper's Cloak.
Okay. So they reduce. Why didn't they reduce the magic resistance for that as opposed to his base magic resistance, which every hero has 25, if I can remember correctly?
This makes him much worse early game.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
he's kind of OP in tri lanes, which
Okay.
is the early game.
This is something that Ice Frog. It's interesting the way he like you were talking about this earlier. The way he nerfs heroes. Like, I think the most broken thing about Visage is oh god, what's it called? The damage nuke. What's it called?
Soul
Soul
Assumption.
Assumption?
Yeah. So instead of nerfing that, he goes for something completely different to make him squishier, basically.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
It's actually really
approach.
cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
It's
if you,
definitely
um,
unique.
go for it.
on offensive tri-lane, you can actually blow up the Visage first. Like go on him before he can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you nerf somebody's offensive capabilities, nobody's going to want to play the hero anymore. But this allows you to have the skill cap still be really high. So he still has a lot of offensive potential, so he becomes a bit of a glass cannon, but that means that you have to be more careful with your positioning. So people who have bad positioning will still suck with this hero, and it still gives you an opportunity. So like this way, we'll still see the hero played, which I guess technically takes away from other heroes, but we'll still see the hero played. He still has good potential and good tools, but they're not going to be nerfed enough where like the hero will just be irrelevant. So, and he still can make up for that base magic resistance later with farm. Like he can grab a cloak if he really wants it, or Gravekeeper's Cloak, for example. So it's like it'll make him a lot worse in the early game. Maybe not a lot, but like a moderate amount worse in the early game. But that's still like way too strong of a word. But he's worse in the early game, but he still can make up with it with his passives. So it's good.
All right, Warlock. Fatal Bonds now links the closest units to the initial target instead of randomly choosing. Upheaval cast range has been increased by a fuck ton, I have to
Yes,
say.
that's a
Upheaval
lot.
duration. And again, Upheaval is a skill that nobody, like, they just get stats
No
over
one
that.
uses it. Yeah.
The duration has also been increased. And then moving along, we'll talk about that in a sec. The Chaotic Offering, which is his ultimate, which I think is the worst named ultimate in the game, but one of the best ultimates in the game, I must say. No more 100 impact damage, which I think is a decent nerf. Again, one of those things where he's nerfing things that aren't considered completely OP. The Golem itself has armor increased, though, and the mana cost has been increased overall. So let's go to the Upheaval. Now, what's the cast range of the Golem, which I'm not calling by the real name?
I don't know.
It's large, though, right? So theoretically, you can
Kind
cast
of.
your
It's
ulti.
probably like
and
700.
then- Really?
Yeah.
I feel
It's
like
not
it's more
that
than
far.
Okay. Well, regardless, you can cast
I might be
Upheaval from
wrong,
wherever
but-
you're standing.
I
with
think
your
we'll
ultimate.
see more early ganking warlocks. Like
Yeah.
you could see a warlock that goes heal, upheaval, and you could gank a lane with a
That
smoke.
would be cool. That would be really cool.
I think that would be okay. Because the slow is 14% per second, but if the range is that high, you can position the upheaval in a place where they have to run through it for 3 seconds, and all of a sudden you've got like a 60% slow for 12 seconds, and that's a dead hero. So I think this is really good. It makes Warlock better early game, which is where he sucks. He's like really shitty before 6.
Yeah.
Partially because nobody ever got upheaval, but this will make upheaval easier to use in more situations.
All right, so slight nerf to Weaver. Windrunner Focus Fire. It now stickies to the target you're cast on. So instead of if you switch the target and you switch back to the initial target that you used it on, it was broken before, now it's still there. Does this really change anything? Is this a skill that people would still use on a unit when, like... I mean, I feel like it's a lot of mana.
You can still only use it late game, so not really.
I feel like it's still going to be used mostly on towers.
It's very mana expensive, but yeah.
Alright, and then some slight changes to Warlock. Let's see, Death Ward cast range increased.
Witch Doctor?
Or, what did I say, Warlock? Yeah, Witch Doctor. I love Witch Doctor too, how dare I. Voodoo Restoration AoE increased. I feel like his big problem is his shit, what's it called? What's his,
Cask?
No. The
Death Ward?
the purple thing.
Maledict?
Yeah, Maledict. I feel like the cast range on that needs a buff, but...
It just got a buff, you bastard.
What did it get?
It got like a huge range buff. It went from like 200, 300 cast range to like 500.
Are you sure
No,
it's 500?
I think it means the circle.
I'm talking
No,
about
he means the cast range.
the cast range, yeah.
This bro hasn't played Witch Doctor in 6 months, obviously.
I
Get
play
out of
carry
here.
Witch Doctor.
Well, you're not
actually.
doing it right.
Okay, so I take back what I
It
said.
just got a buff. Last patch, it got a buff.
Okay, so I take... it needs to be like 1400 range.
Yeah, let's just make it 6
Let's-
global.
1200, yeah, actually
Global.
that'd be great.
God, that'd
Maybe
be so...
he'd be played at that point. I mean, come
Dude,
on.
he would be the best hero in the game if that shit was global.
That would be awesome.
It'd be the dumbest thing. It's like the best Sunstrike ever.
Yes. Okay. So since this is the last year, any changes from? Oh, let's just go over all the heroes. So anything stand out for you guys in general?
I think we talked about the heroes enough. Gonna be straight.
All right. So items, Animal Courier, which this coincides with the Flying Courier. The movement speed has been increased by 50, and the HP has been increased as well, which means you can't snipe it as easily. But the reason that was done is because when you buy a Flying Courier, you can't purchase a Flying Courier for 3 minutes after the spawn, which is an interesting change. Discuss.
Go for it, baby.
Oh my.
What?
Said take me.
The courier?
Yeah, talk about the courier changes and the mid changes.
Oh, okay. So this is my first analysis thing that I've done. So you're lucky, SUNSfan.
Yes.
The move speed increases to compensate for the fact that, well, you're going to see it in a bit, but supports can no longer buy Flying Courier until 3 minutes of the in-game time. So the move speed is meant to kind of compensate for that. Also, a really popular strategy in pub play and in general was if there was a Nature's Prophet on the other team, and if they didn't do this change, it would just be the most broken thing ever.
Yeah.
Nature's Prophets would just wait for you to get your bottle, and then they would snipe it. And now it takes not 1 hit but 2 to kill,
I
and
feel like
it's a
they
lot
still
faster.
can do that pretty easily, though.
No, because the speed, the 300 to 350 is actually huge, because it's actually like a hero with boots now, and having 2 hits means that if they go in between towers, they're more likely to die as a result of them trying to snipe the courier.
I see.
If before, what would happen is if you went for a courier snipe, you could only send 1 support hero. Like if you watch I think it was LGD International a year ago versus Tongfu, 1437 smokes and then just waits for the courier to walk by and snipes the bottle. Now you need 2 supports to do that. But it was just in direct correspondence to the whole Flying Courier
Right.
thing.
All right, Arcane Boots, movement speed reduced. We'll get to the boots a little bit later. Armlet of Mordigian, instead of providing the strength gain immediately, it's over a 0.7 second period. Don't feel like this is a huge change. It's interesting though.
No,
I
it
mean, it's
makes
a
it
little
so
bit
that
harder
you
to
can't,
survive.
you don't get the instant health anymore.
Right.
Well, it just reduces. All right, if you're doing your attacks every 0.7 seconds, it makes no difference because you can still armlet toggle it. But if you're taking a shitload of damage at variable rates, you have a lower chance of surviving. This
Right,
is the
so
change.
there's less survivability with the armlet, which I think was needed because it was probably too good.
It's
But
a good way to
there's
fix
no
the issue
cooldown now,
as well.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't just people using binds on this are not going to make a difference basically, or it's gonna matter a whole lot less.
Right.
So it fixes the bind issue while also making the items slightly less annoying to play against if you're playing against really good people. I guess.
All right, BKB increased in price a bit. Blink Dagger, damage disabled. This is really just a direct thing with Pudge, rotting, and blinking. Not really that important. Bloodstone now gives 10 damage for its components.
Huge storm buff right here.
I love that. That's
like
huge.
that?
No, it really is big. I really think that the reason I go Perseverance before finishing the Soul Booster is because you get the 10 damage.
Right.
It's huge.
I thought it was 8
I like
damage
it
for
a lot.
Perseverance. Not? Wait, you lose the 10 damage when you combine
Yes.
them? No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, that was so stupid. I
That's
really
one of
hated
those
that.
arbitrary things then that
Yeah,
they just
as a
find
Storm
out.
player in the early game, and somebody that gets it like before 20 minutes, that thing owns.
Boots of Travel, not important. Bottle, although we're still going to talk about the boots in general. Bottle has been increased in gold, so you can't buy it immediately. Can't go bottle first, which is nice, I think. And something that all the consumables, which again we'll go over this, you can no longer share them, but you can use them on target allies, which we'll get into that in a second here. Dust of Appearance slow has been increased, which I think is really cool addition when they added that slow, and it's going to even be better now. Yule's Scepter, the Cyclone has been reduced for the cooldown, that is, from 30 to 25. The movement speed bonus has been increased. Does this change anything for Yule's? I mean,
Not
Yours
really.
is getting really good, man. It's
Yeah.
like a boots right now.
That's
It's
true.
really
That's
inexpensive,
actually really
too.
true, because all the boots are lowered in, except for one, and actually two, have been lowered in move speed. So that is true. That I think having move speed is going to be more important than before. Eye of Scotty, been buffed. Not too
important.
It's not that important. It's best item in the game, but not important. My favorite item. Hopefully we see that more often on heroes that don't usually get it. I guess Slark and Medusa are the main two, and Morphling. Gem has been increased in price, which is nice. Hand of Midas no longer works on Necro units, which is of course great, because Necro used to be one of the best items in the game in Dota 1. I remember it being banned, like you couldn't get more than like 2 or something like that, and now you see 1 maximum in games. Healing Salve has been increased in price, and it's no longer shareable, which at the end, let's do the consumables, I guess. Helm of Dominator, another buff for Necro units, can no longer use it. Hyperstone has been changed in price. Lincoln Sphere, this is really weird. So Lincoln Sphere can now be cast on allied heroes to transfer the buff. So this is really, I feel like this is really random.
No, it's cool.
Big. It's a big buff, obviously, but
It's like if you see a projectile coming to your teammate and you know it's not coming to yourself, then you can like use it to dodge for your teammate. And it also kind of weakens you at the same time, so you have to be really smart when you use it, right?
it's pretty
you
cool
can-
though. I mean,
yeah.
it's weird and cool. I'd like to see it in action to see how it.
I really like the potential to be able to grab a Lincoln's on a off support, like a 4 or a 5 maybe, and then you can use it to save your carries or.
Right.
There's
More
no way you're
materials.
farming like 5K
Shut your
gold.
mouth. It's gonna happen, and it's gonna make some top 10 plays.
You're not gonna make 2,100 gold in
Dude,
one
I'll make
go.
it on Enigma so much now.
God.
I will, seriously. Screw BKB, that item's boring. I'm just gonna make a Lincoln Sphere every
No,
time now.
Aghanims, bro. Aghanims.
I'm gonna go Lincolns and eggs, dude.
There you go. Beautiful.
Can we go to the big thing, the Observer Ward? The
Yes.
duration is
Well,
increased from 6 to
yes.
7 minutes. And the Killing Observer Wards now grant a 50 gold bounty, which is another thing from that game that
Yes.
we won't mention.
I was gonna
But
say.
I think it's really big because it makes, with the gold buff, I mean, going from 0.8 to 0.6, and the 50 gold you get now from killing an Observer Ward, it makes support job a lot easier. Because before you'd like de-ward something, and then you'd be like, wow, that's so exciting, I got to de-ward something. But now you get a reward for it. So
But then you're gonna
players
get.
have,
There's gonna be such a thing as
advantage
KSing
of.
wards now. Carries are
I
gonna KS all the
guess.
wards.
I would do that, I totally would. I'd
Yeah,
be one of those
I know you
players.
would. I think that's pretty cool though, and yeah, it's from the game we shall not name, and it does reward. I mean, there's been other things in the patch, obviously, that's rewarding support players. It's just so miserable playing like the main support, which I don't know anything about, obviously, but I can
Yeah.
still feel for people from afar. Phase boots lowered in speed. Pipe of Insight barrier's been increased, which is nice because I thought it was too low to begin with. Treads also lowered in speed. Skipping some of this, 10 damage for Refresher Orb. Rod of Atos. Cooldown
Shadow
reduced.
Blade is the big thing.
Okay, Shadow Blade.
Yeah,
Wait,
because
what about
the
sentries? Yeah, sentries.
oh yeah, Sentry. It's
Oh,
not
that's
too.
good.
Yeah, the Shadow Blade was way too good beforehand. Like everyone was calling it a pub item, and I was getting it on like every year, and I was like,
Yeah.
no, this item is legit, way too good.
Yeah.
And having it like last, how long does it last for, Kevin?
9
it's
seconds.
like 10 seconds. I can look it up.
It almost like lasts for the duration,
Yeah.
like at least half or more. So the fact that you could essentially spam it and go around the map and is really good. I think this is actually a direct nerf to heroes like Nature's Prophet, where you could just like TP, use it, like over and over again. What I really like
12
about what
seconds.
Icerock did is he didn't actually nerf Nature's Prophet directly too much, but with the nerfs to the neutral camps and the Shadow Blade and things of that nature, I think really weaken the hero without having to just like nerf him to shit.
Yeah.
So in the past, it lasted for 12 seconds and it had a cooldown of 18. So that means
Yeah.
if you wanted to split push, you could Shadow Blade as that was about running out. You would have about 6 seconds of visibility where your opponents could see you. And as they show up, they have basically 6 seconds until you go invis again, which is
Yeah.
a tiny window, which means you can use Shadow Blade to get into their jungle to position. And similar to what Bounty Hunter does, as he is about to become visible, he hides again and he uses it again. So the uptime is like much lower, which means you can't use it more than 2 times in an entire team fight, which is really good because it means that you can't just like constantly go around the map and snowball from this item as hard. You either have to use it defensively or you have to use it offensively once. You can't do both in the same little engagement.
I think you'll still get it on heroes like Dragon Knight and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Alchemist probably.
It just makes it so much easier to gank heroes that do get the item.
But I think Kunkka now, it's kind of, because Kunkka's like one of those one-hit wonder kind of deals, right? And he's kind of just stuck in the middle.
I would still get it on Kunkka. Yeah. I just think it was too good on heroes like
Alchemist
and like even TA was pretty good on, or like Dragon Knight or Prophet. It was just so hard to deal with the split pushing if you didn't have detection. So sometimes those first couple pushes, like it's going to force the players basically to be a lot more mindful of their cooldowns. They can't use it constantly to run around the map, or it's like it's more often that you'll probably find heroes running in the jungle who have a Shadow Blade and then they'll go invis, so then you'll know they're there, rather than them just being like, oh, I'm going to stroll through the jungle to go somewhere else, I might as well use my Shadow Blade. So I think you'll catch more people making mistakes with it more often because the cooldown's a lot higher.
Alright, Smoke of Deceit. Was this something, now, when people use Smoke of Deceit, the only way to see them on the map itself was visibly have your camera on top of the area where a sentry was, right?
Correct.
And now you can't see that. Was that even, like, is that a common thing to actually have your camera just looking there?
It happens sometimes in pro games, but it was not consistent.
Okay, so this is just like making it more consistent and...
Well, I mean, it was consistent in the fact that pro players didn't always have their camera there.
Exactly.
Was the thing. I think it's going to add a lot more unpredictability to the game and means that there will be more chances of people getting caught out, which could end games earlier. And in some ways, though, it might make...
with the buyback, too.
Or tell me if I am wrong, Will, but I think it sometimes will also force teams to play more 5-man rather than playing like greedy spread out and farm for a long time, which could make games more boring in some ways because people will 5-man more, but at the same time there'll be like more people getting picked off. I'm not sure how it'll make the game go, but there's no safe way basically against the smoke anymore.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they did make this buff to smoke. I still think it was hard because you still always had to like look at the sentries and stuff like that. So it's not too big of a deal. The nighttime buff in conjunction with this though,
that's true. Yeah.
Is the biggest thing that I can think of. But aside from that, it's a pretty decent buff.
All right, Tango, and we'll talk about all the consumables now. Charges have been increased from 3 to 4. Gold, of course, the increased gold cost. It's no longer shareable, just like all the other consumables. Randomly, you can give 1 charge to an ally. Okay, let's talk about the consumables in general. Why has this been changed? Is it something that support heroes just pool people at the beginning of the game and then have no items kind of thing? Or?
No. For what you'd see a lot competitively mid, let's say you see a Queen of Pain or a Puck, right? You'd see them start out with a null, and then they get a branch or 2 branches for themselves, and then their supports would give them a Tango and a Salve. What this does now is that the mid hero isn't just stacked to shit, and doesn't just have a ton of regen. You have to plan out your money a lot better than you did before, because before you would just whoever wasn't stacked and the person that was stacked had such a huge advantage, right? This patch in general just makes things a lot better for supports. With the dewarding gold, the upgrade in gold per second, the Shadow Blade nerf, because honestly that destroyed supports. You'd like reshot supports, and you'd have to like consistently buy dust and sentries, right, for the initiation and having to chase them. The Tango, the Clarity, the Salve nerf, the Crow nerf, it all indirectly helps supports in that you don't have to spend all this gold in the very beginning of the game helping out your carries. You can actually afford things like sentries and smokes and dewards and stuff like that. And you can also buy things like a magic stick early on. You can get your boots and a TP. You can actually like buy things as a support rather than just meandering with absolutely no gold for such a long time. I think that's like the biggest implication it has, aside from the big implications they have for the mid lane, where you don't just like stack somebody to shit anymore.
Yeah, I think this is all helpful for support. So it's good to see, because I think that's something that pubs. I mean, honestly, this directly relates to pubs as well. Like, people don't like playing support, so
Yeah.
give them a give them a little love.
It makes the like. I think what iStrong is trying to do is competitively, if you have to play support, and you're playing it for good people, so you don't really care, right? Because you assume that they're going to do something with your support. Same with the offlane, right? If you offlane and you're willing to get like screwed the entire game, you have to assume that your carry and your supports are doing a good job of forcing their offlane to have the same experience, right?
Right.
But in a pub play, it's like you're completely killing yourself. You know, you're just being like mauled in terms of gold, and you're doing all this work, and you have to buy regen, and you have to buy wards, and you're getting like no income at all, and you're just having like the worst time possible. But with this, you can actually afford items. You don't get like that annoying mid guy saying like "crow now or leave," you know.
Blitz.
And
Seriously.
and stuff like that, though, right? And it also helps like the off lane, where you don't have to like debase yourself and you're having like the most miserable time ever. It actually makes a lot more roles fun to play aside from just the mid and just the carry. Because like, let's be honest, before this patch, the only active lane you really saw was either a contested tri lane or the middle lane. Like, you never saw action almost anywhere else.
That's true.
Like, you saw, if it was like a traditional setup, both the safe lanes were like uncontested, nothing ever happened. The supports might rotate to mid once in a while, but aside from that, like, that was all the action you
there's
saw.
going to be a lot more missed kills from casters, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
100%. I just think this entire patch was made for more heroes to be more viable, more heroes to be funner.
Remember from the last big patch, it might have been a test of source to see what people, like, how people react as far as spectators concerned, and this is just building upon that. I mean, it's making it much more enjoyable to watch, and I think that's a great thing to see. Only a couple more things to go over. Tranquil Boots I feel like is an enormous change, and I love these. So, as you saw with every other boots other than Boots of Travel, it's been lowered in movement speed, except for Tranquil, which has gone up by 10, and you get plus 4 armor overall and plus 10 HP regeneration. When it's broken, you still get the 4 armor, no HP regeneration, but still 60 move speed, which is more than all the other boots minus Boots of Travel. You cannot disassemble, though. That's one of the big changes. But I feel like that doesn't even that's obviously a negative factor, but I feel like this is a great set of boots. And Blitz, since I know you played the game that should not be named, this is very similar, even more similar than before, to Striders, which
I actually never
great
played the
items.
game that weekend on
That's a lie.
I seriously no, I promise.
How do you know the names then?
What? What do you mean? How do I know the names?
You talked about it earlier. Okay, whatever. Regardless, great boots.
Wait,
I
what?
feel like
I never knew the names of anything from.
great boots.
The 4 armor, even when they're broken, is really good for supports. Because there's a lot of supports that run around that have no armor ever, and it's a really shitty time for them. So this might be really good on heroes like Lion, for example.
And the move speed buff is really big too, like having it keep to 60. Heroes like Lion, CM, all those supports like Rasta that have terrible move speed.
Yeah.
Well, like, here's your answer. Now you have something where you can actually initiate with. Like, before with Venge, the boot to get was like phase or treads, but now with 85 move speed, like, for you to initiate with, it's going to be really hard for a hero to run away from that unless they have a built-in escape mechanism, right? Like, you can actually run up to people and they can't run away like quick enough. And on top of that, the cannot be disassembled thing is for heroes like Anti-Mage or Spectre, you know, where you rush the Trinkles, or like even OD,
Luna,
like any of those mid heroes, where you'd abuse that by
this has
getting
become
those
more of a
boots and then
utility or support item pickup. It's
Exactly.
great for like moving around. And one thing I didn't mention, it's similar to the other game, when they break even when you attack now, as opposed to having charges of getting attacked upon, which it's balanced.
So you won't be able to use them in the jungle anymore on heroes like X, because if you take any damage or if you attack yourself, they're broken. Well, I mean, you'll still have the 4 armor, so they're not horrible, I would say. But I'm not sure if they're if they're okay for X or not, but they're much better for like roaming heroes who spend a lot of time not attacking or getting attacked, rather than jungling heroes. So I think they're very good for supports, though. The movement speed is so good. 85 is ridiculous. That's like almost a phased hero. Like that's almost equivalent to grabbing a phase boots and using the phase active continuously.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Trust me when I say it's gonna make things much more active and like roaming potential. It's gonna be so much more fun to watch. I love these boots. This is my favorite change aside from the hero stuff that in this patch, and I think it's going to change things quite a bit. It should be exciting. Okay, so last thing, Urn of Shadows, blah, 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 Veil of Discord. You can null Talisman, blah, blah, blah.
Can we talk about the Vanguard buff for 20 minutes?
That's what I want to end, about the Vanguard, actually. The buff, it makes no difference as far as I'm concerned. I think the thing that they need to change is just make it disassemblable, because then you can just upgrade it into
2 OP. Get out.
A heart. You think that's too OP, bro?
Yep, too good.
I think they're trying to
every
get.
carry
Would
build
away,
a Vanguard in the early game if they have plans for a heart. Every carry would do it.
That is true.
Just about.
Well, what
like,
can
think
they do
about
with Vanguard then?
Think about Anti-Mage, for God's sake.
Yeah.
He can turn the Ring of Health into a Battle Fury, and you can turn the Vitality Booster. That would be the most Try killing an Anti-Mage who has like 1,000 HP at 6 minutes.
Then nerf other things for him. I don't know. Like Vanguard is so useless on almost every hero.
It's
like,
not.
What do they do with this?
It really isn't. I think it's situationally on the right hero is very good. The damage block is ridiculous.
So
I can't remember what hero I was playing.
Are you fine with it being situationally good? Because I remember back in the day, it's like standard pickup on everybody. Like
yeah,
Spectre,
but that's
Anti-Mage.
because like wands weren't as popular, and there weren't any like cheap HP options like drum. Tranquil boots didn't exist, so there wasn't like a good boots option
So
where a
it's kind
carry
of been
could get
phased
OP.
out because of newer, more utilities, cheaper items, kind of.
Yeah, that supply the regen over time. The regen over time is honestly the most important thing that was changed. Like everybody can buy HP items. They can buy treads, or they can buy an ogre club for their BKB later. But there wasn't something that was inexpensive, that didn't take up a lot of item slots, that could make sure that your HP was always full and could also sustain you through some harass. But once Tranquil Boots were added, that's why every carry bought it, because it's like, oh, I just spent 400 gold or like 500 gold past my regular boots, and now I don't have to worry about the Darkseer or the Windrunner or whatever. It's like it just covered that regen, where in the past people would have to spend 2k and get a Vanguard. So that's the big difference.
All right.
So I don't know. It's good sometimes.
That's the whole patch. Let's get some quick, not recaps, but what do you guys impressions, and then give us your social media stuff so people can follow you and all that good stuff.
I'm actually really excited to play a lot of offlane heroes now, because getting EXP is going to be a lot easier, and your potential to get solo kills is going to be better as well. I think because your EXP is going to be more equal with them, and it means it's going to be a lot more skill based. I think in terms of the matchup, the only downside is that it's going to force people to have to pick stronger lanes. So carries that don't have lane contribution are going to be less popular now, I think. So hopefully things work out nicely as a result. I can't wait to see how it plays out though.
I think mid lane will be shifted to a skill-based thing where you don't rely on people for regen, because for some reason my supports never stack me regen, and nobody ever buys me a crow when I need my bottle. So
yeah,
at least this
50
point,
seconds.
this point people have a reason not to.
Yeah.
You know, and I really like the fact that everyone just doesn't bottle crow anymore. You actually have to control the runes and stuff. The one thing I don't like is that now you're even more reliant on runes, which I think is kind of terrible, because the runes are random, and that really screws you, right? Because like, if your supports check top and their supports check bottom, and it happens to be bottom, and you can't bottle crow, well, what then?
Yeah, well, I can see that being a potential problem, and I don't want this to happen, but I'm just saying the other game that some of these changes were based upon, honestly, one of the things they added that I think is dumb is, you guys heard about this, the rune thing, right? Where one rune spawns and the other one, there's always something. It just refills your bottle no matter what. So
refills the bottle completely?
Yes, completely refills the bottle.
I like that, honestly, because I think it's silly that if you're doing all these things to nerf bottle crow, and I understand why, because it's kind of silly that you can make anybody a mid hero, right? Because you can bottle crow, and it makes it so that it's a really passive game, right? Because if you can bottle crow nonstop, then you can't ever kill anybody in the mid lane. You just sit back and wait for your bottle, do it all over again. But the stupid thing is, by proxy, what you're doing is you're making it so that you're essentially almost entirely relying on the randomness of runes for the first like 3 minutes of the game.
But on the other side of the coin, with heroes being more roamable, I guess I'm making that word up if it's not a word, the runes can be denied so much more easily now as well.
Yeah,
like
for
even
sure.
if there were both sides, they'd just be denied every single time.
Yeah.
But okay, for me, great patch. I think a lot of negative feedback, honestly, from people. I don't know why. I think the Bloodseeker thing, people are they're just over analyzing things with the Bloodseeker thing in particular. I think overall it's going to be much more spectator friendly, not that it wasn't before. A lot more kills. I think the Tranquil Boots in general will make supports, and of course the ward changes, getting more gold from that, and all the other consumables for the supports can make things much more enjoyable to play as well. Thanks for joining us, guys. That was fun. Give us your social media stuff and your private email addresses so we can email you sweet nothings.
Send all nudes to William Lee. What are the numbers again? At Purdue.edu.
No, that's not even my. That's Lee629.
Damn.
Purdue.edu.
Oh, no.
There you go. Send all nudes to that email address, guys.
Coming.
You can follow me on Facebook or Twitter at Purge Gamers, and go check out my YouTube videos. I have a lot more instructional content, and I'm sure I'll make a lot of different videos when the new patch comes out, because there's like tons of stuff to talk about to see how like lanes change. Like pull lanes are gonna be different, off lanes are gonna be different, everything's gonna be moderately different.
You gotta remake everything, bro.
And that's youtube.com/purgegamers. Yeah, I just made like a how to, like I made this like starting item builds video like 2 years ago. I made a refresh of it like a month ago, and now it's all borked. I should
Now
just
you gotta
waited.
add like 30 gold or whatever it is.
Yeah. Everything's messed up.
Blitz?
I'd like to give a shout out to everybody that watches my stream, even though you didn't ask for shout outs.
It's implied.
For those of you who don't know what my stream is, it's twitch.tv/blitzdota, and I primarily play mid, storm, SFTA, all that jazz. My Twitter is blitz_dota, because some Russian guy took Blitz Dota, and he's very angry and won't give it back to me. So the Twitch is Blitz Dota, the Twitter is blitz_dota. And thanks to Harry and Kent for their hospitality while I'm here in Canada. That's it for me.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys, and probably the longest video we've ever done. Just want to close with saying Blitz is the #2 Storm Spirit in the world, not #1. All right, bye, guys.
Dude!